Welcome back, everybody, here for Six Masters Playoffs. Desmada has transformed into a raven, kind of almost like my long-lost brother as well, look pretty similar. Welcome, mate, to the broadcast. Welcome to Six Masters Playoffs.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. And yeah, look, I'm sure there's going to be lots of comments about how we look alike. People have often said it already when we weren't next to each other, and now here we are.
Yeah, I just don't have my glasses on, and then we'd probably be spitting image. But hey, coming in, you probably watched, I assume you watched the series between Akami and Sinister. Were you surprised in the result 2-0 to Akami?
Look, I was surprised. I always thought it was going to be a really great, tight contest. I'm honestly surprised it ended in just 2 maps. I really thought we were in for 3. I couldn't call it either way. I was leaning towards Sinister at the start. But Okami, well, they really brought out the guns and they just went off on that Villa map. And here we are. They won 2-0.
Yeah, 100%. We're going to have a look at the bracket to just recap where we are at now, where we're also heading forward. So Akami in the upper round or semi-final, whichever you want to call it, 2-0 over Sinister, sends them down into the lower bracket, right? Where, of course, they're now going to await the loser of this matchup that is about to be played, Wildcard versus Pittsburgh Knights.
And that should also be a great match. I mean, Wildcard are probably going to be favorites coming into this one. They've been dominant all of 6 Masters, but the Knights have had some really big maps of their own. And of course, just knowing that Sinister await a team in the lower bracket, that does help things along a little bit. It's not as much pressure in a single elimination.
Gonna have a look at Wildcard's lineup for this matchup. Ethan, Diesel, Emo, the gods really right now, because they've been playing like gods this regular season. Raven, they've been by far and away the best team this season, only dropping 1 map to LFO, which was quite a long time ago as well, mind you. So they're the team to beat right now.
They really are. That map was all the way back in May, and it was a 5-7, so it wasn't like they lost it in dramatic fashion. Wildcard have really been going from strength to strength with this new lineup. Of course, Pat and Gio are newest additions to them in 6 Masters. But really one of their long stayers, Ethan, he had one of the best seasons I think I've ever seen him have. He really went off in so many games, and there's still a massive consulate game that stands out to me where he had a 20 bomb and it just looked like he couldn't miss.
Well, right now, speaking of couldn't miss, it looks like Wildcard couldn't lose anything, right? And coming in against Pittsburgh Knights, we very much give them the overwhelming favorite odds. We'll have the poll vote later, but I wouldn't even be surprised if it was something like 90% in favor of Wildcard. Of course, you're going to have some fans of Pittsburgh Knights that'll skew the results, but realistically speaking right now, they are by far and away the favorites, not just for this series, but also the playoffs as a whole.
No doubt. And of course, they've got the prowess and the reputation as well coming into 6 Masters of the global experience they had with the Tokoname Pro League Finals, 6 Invitational. They have gone through those minor roster changes since then. But that experience really adds up, and they've really flexed ever since in the entirety of this season.
Yeah, we've got, of course, their opponents, the Pittsburgh Knights, who maybe felt like they shouldn't even be here. Of course, there was a lot of intriguing stories around the final 3 teams, which was LFO, Ferox, Knights, who was going to get this 4th and final spot, and in essence, who was going to be thrown into the fire, which was, of course, the 1v4 matchup against Wildcard. These guys have had an up and down season, I think it's fair to say, Raven, but they're here now, and that's all that matters.
Up and down is a great way to describe their season. If you look through their history, it was never stringing together a lot of wins or stringing together a lot of losses. It was just back and forth. But hey, they had a really good season, taking a 2-mapper off Elevate. That was a 2-0 series, considering one of the stronger teams, and also taking it to some of these big teams. Most recently, in fact, the last map they played in regular season was against Wildcard, and that was only a 5-7 loss. Very narrow on Villa. So they really can go toe-to-toe with teams like Wildcard, and in particular, Wildcard.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got teams like Wildcard, but then you got Wildcard themselves. The thing is, teams like Wildcard, the team we just had prior, Akami, while they're not probably on the exact same level as Wildcard, they are a team now, especially after their 2-0 against Sinister, that can compete potentially against Wildcard. And Knights got kind of shown up against them. It was, at the time, back it was Playday 10 or whatever. Back then, Knights really needed to get at least like 1 map from that. They got 2-0'd by Akami. That seemed like the turning point. I remember the interview with Strider, and he was quite devastated from that series in particular, because that was the one that they needed to at least get 1. But it also felt like that was the series that kind of dropped them like a couple of echelons down, you know, the behind the Sinister, behind Akami, behind Wildcard, for instance. So Knights get a bit to prove here in the playoffs. And if it's not here against Wildcard, then of course it would have to be against Sinister in the lower bracket.
And that's an important point too, is if they do lose this series to Wildcard, of course there is the lower bracket run that they can have, but they will want to be stepping up against Wildcard here. They know they can go toe-to-toe. They've had some really great games in Six Masters, and they've also had the last 4 or so weeks to work on some new stuff that really could come out of the gate and surprise Wildcard.
We turn our attention though towards the maps, the map vetoes in particular. These two teams have both got very common ban rates. You know, Border basically should be banned by Wildcard, no surprise if that's the case. And then also Consulate for Pittsburgh Knights could also be the ban for them. Although I say that, and from what we saw in the sort of pick ban phase in the map vetoes in the first series, it didn't play out as we kind of expected it would.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you have a break at the regular season towards the playoffs, it gives teams that extra time to work on some things, work on their weaker maps, and maybe that's enough time for them to turn around to make it a strong map. And that can really help through a best-of-3 style veto. So for sure, we could be in for some big surprises here. Wildcard in particular, though, they have a very set map pool. They just don't play Border. So I think that's still a pretty safe ban.
They just don't play Border. They just ban Border, and the same can be said, I guess, also for Consulate from the Knights. This time around, no surprises here, kind of like we had a few surprises in the Akami Sinister series in that map veto phase, but definitely no shocker here from either of these two. For Wildcard, though, you know, they just don't play Border. They play everything else, though. So really, their pick, anything could be on the board for them.
Yeah, and that's the real strength about having such a deep map pool, is the Knights are going to be up against it in this veto. It's going to be really tough for them to weed out exactly which maps to Wildcard to take them to, because, I don't know, most of them look strong, to be honest, besides a couple there, Clubhouse, mixed results, but same with the Knights. So it's not necessarily that it's their strength either. So really, in terms of this veto, I feel like Wildcard really do have a lot more going for them than the Knights.
I certainly do. It's going to be, though, what has become the Six Masters home stomping grounds. Kafe, Clubhouse. It wouldn't have been a Six Masters playoffs if we didn't get a night where we had a Kafe and Clubhouse. So, of course, it's a best-of-3 this time, Raven. So there will be a deciding map. It was Theme Park in the first series, although we didn't get to go there. We, of course, need to sort of play the rest out here to see what we could potentially see as our decider. Villa banned out, Coastline, and Theme Park will get the deciding map again.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think that's great. Wildcard showed some pretty big muscle on Theme Park throughout the regular season. In fact, they won it 3 times, didn't lose it once. And they beat opponents like Sinister, for example. And they had, as we've already talked about quite a lot tonight, a pretty good season in themselves. So Wildcard have shown that they can be good on Theme Park. Likewise with most of these maps, and that's where it's just up to the Knights. How well have they VODed Wildcard? What kind of strats have they figured out for themselves? I think that's probably the biggest question, is the playstyle that the Knights bring into this game. It needs to destabilize that big methodical structure of Wildcard.
Knights picking Kafe. They've had relatively mixed results, though, on Kafe, but at the same time, it's a map that pretty much everyone has been playing. I mean, Kafe and Clubhouse are the 2 most picked maps this season of Six Masters. I think maybe for Knights, it's just a matter of, because of how versatile the map pool is for Wildcard, you probably, at the end of the day, just want to go to what you feel comfortable on the most. Absolutely. And I think that's just what Wildcard are probably thinking the same as well. Clubhouse, they've had pretty good results on. They haven't shown it as much either. So I'm a little bit worried for the Knights here, to be honest. Looking at the veto, I'm still feeling Wildcard flexing that muscle. I think it's hard to look past that. Yeah. Well, let's talk about flexing. We got the poll vote. Wouldn't be surprised to see Wildcard flexing a healthy lead in that poll vote. Yes. 77% to 23. That's pretty large. And yet I still feel like maybe Raven, it's not even as large as it could have been. To be honest, yeah, I kind of expect it to be even more separated. And I think that's just natural, because people really know that Wildcard name, that Wildcard brand globally, for one matter. But just given their season and the way that they've come into the playoffs here, and the fact that the Knights really just fell in at that last hurdle just through some mathematics there, you've got to kind of question about their ability to go up against Wildcard. But I still think they have it in them. We might see the 3 maps, and I would love to be able to see some Theme Park. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing theme park because it would mean we would have a series on our hands. But it all kickstarts here at Kafe. Pittsburgh trying to climb essentially Mount Everest in trying to take down Wildcard. We go to their map pick first, Kafe. If they're going to show us anything, it has to be here, Raven.
It does have to be here. They have to really pull something out from the start, because I think if Wildcard get into a rhythm or some comfort, that can be a really dangerous spot, because it's going to be even harder to destabilize them from. So I'd expect the Knights to really come out of the gate with some interesting play style, maybe even some extra aggression, and just take it right up to the Giants of Wildcard.
Thatcher banned out, no surprise. I don't think we'll see the Ying. Maestro, I think on defense would be one to also take out. We saw it banned out in the Akami Sinister series, and it really did make, the reading fireplace hold just that little bit weaker. But in the end, we actually saw a lot more roamers being selected as a whole on Kafe rather than sort of these really defensive operators. Capital really just allows Pixel to be just that little bit safer as well.
Does allow you to play safer there, and of course the mirror are going to deny that intel. Can be quite strong on a couple of sides. Kitchen, a big one there, as well as top floor. Mirror in that washroom can be incredibly helpful. So just getting rid of that intel denial. Likewise with the Maestro, that's going to deny a lot of that intel gathering from a bulletproof style camera. Will make attacking a touch easier, less to clear as well, which is what you definitely want to have with a Thatcher ban.
So, as head into round one, we kind of just breathe a little bit here and see how it's going to play out. Bar Cocktail first up. It's going to be Knights attacking. You say probably going up against Wildcard. I would probably say going attacking first is going to suit Knights here, just to allow them to have a bit of freedom to sort of do as they please a bit and trying to just get a bit of a footing in this series.
It does give them a bit of freedom, but there's a bit of pressure on the attack side as well. I think especially for a map like Kafe, which in the past does seem to lean more towards defenses. I think that's going to put a bit of pressure on the start for the Knights, but it does allow them to surprise Wildcard in one way or another. They might pull out some really aggressive attacks or surprise them with some insane methodical structure, and that might not be what Wildcard's expecting. So this really is the chance here for the Knights to start it off strong and just try and gain a little bit of this early momentum.
Clubhouse after Kafe. We will be going there regardless, but to see theme park, I'm going to go out on a pretty big limb and say we're definitely going to have to see Knights take Kafe. So if we don't see Knights take Kafe, the odds of them getting to a third map probably is shrunk quite a bit. Bar Cocktail first up. Finally, prep phase over. Action phase has begun. It's our second semi-final. Wildcard Knights. The Knights, I think they're probably just happy that they're even here, considering the circumstances around the end, that final play day, where out of all of the sort of mathematical possibilities, theirs was the least likely, and yet they're here.
That's true, and I think right up until it was announced, they weren't even sure they were making it in. It was really tight with how that maths worked out, given how the series were all played out in that final day. But they are here, they've got a tough opponent, and that's what they were going to be prepared for. Wildcard were always up in that first seed. Whoever finished fourth, they knew they were going to have the Giants right out of the gate here. Being a double limb, that does help a bit. It is some pressure. Of course, you're going to be playing this first series to win. But you know what? If you lose, it's not the end of the world. You will have that second opportunity.
To find the opening frag onto Josh. First round doesn't really mean too much, but Wildcard on the defense, if they find the first 3-4 rounds and really make it difficult for Knights, it could be a long, long way back. It could be really kind of either a short series, but technically a long series if you're Knights. Good start, though, for Wildcard. Minute 40 seconds remaining, and really nothing too surprising right now. They're always very methodical in the way that they play.
They really are, and that is where the Knights are going to have to poke and prod and try and destabilize that. Losing the Zofia early, I think, is quite the blow, given the utility that a Zofia can bring. Those concussions to clear other utilities, such as the ADSs and magnets that we see Wildcard both have in their lineup, as well as some of the other things like shields, and that C4 is going to delete Strider as well, so that's hard breach off the board. This is a really bad spot for the Knights to be with just a minute to go in the round. They have no hard breacher and a lot of soft destruction off the board.
59 seconds remaining.
Bomb located by attackers.
Diesel over at the balcony, and now 5 versus 2. Dino gets tagged up quite heavy as well outside this window, and this could very well just about be a flawless round in favor of Wildcard to kickstart Kafe, and it is flawless in the end. Pittsburgh certainly have got the warning here from Wildcard that they've got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. What a statement from Wildcard coming out with the flawless round. I mean, we gassed up the Knights saying that it was on them to be able to try and destabilize Wildcard, come out strong with momentum, but it's really happened in the opposite effect here. Wildcard just, we've said it a bit, flexing from that first round in the get-go, and that's going to put pressure back onto the Knights now. Coming into this, they clearly were nervous. I mean, they looked very slow compared to what we've seen from the Knights on that attack, and I think that's just going to be helping Wildcard more and more in this situation. This is a hole the Knights are going to have to crawl themselves out of.
Well, it's only 1-0 though. We can't read too much into it. And I think what you mean is sort of... yeah, okay. I understand what you mean. You know, sort of having to build their way up to take on Wildcard, but it's only one round. Reading Fireplace. This is definitely going to be a task though. I think the Knights are the sort of ideal... I think the ideal half for them would be, I hate to say it, but probably being down like 2-4 at the half, and then just seeing what their defense can bring.
To be honest, yeah, a 2-4 half on Kafe isn't even particularly bad, you know, going into your defenses. It's only a couple of rounds to get it back to even, and that would also bring momentum with it. So I think if the Knights can secure at least 2 rounds, that's not too bad for them. But what I think is most important is that they don't let Wildcard gain too much momentum and really feel that strength that they do have. And they have to protect their own mindset. If they start bleeding rounds against Wildcard, maybe already a little bit nervous coming into this matchup in the gravity of the situation like Six Masters playoffs, that can really get you down into that pit.
Well, you say nerves, but I think for Knights, and again, I don't want to sort of just assume how they're thinking here, but it's kind of a free hit, right? Like when you were down and out, like, and which they were down and out thinking that they didn't qualify, and we had us silly casters telling them that they couldn't even qualify, and then it was only until the final day where I think Jeebus sort of did all of the maths and said, no, actually they can still make it. Like, they've had a reprieve here. And yes, Wildcard's going to be a tough opponent, but they know that. They understand, okay, if we can't beat Wildcard, at least we then go down into the lower bracket. That's where we can really sort of put a dent into these playoffs. I think for Knights, the best case scenario for them is third. I think third's probably the best that they can get here. But they've got a tough ask to start things off here against Wildcard.
And again, they have taken quite a lot of the round here to even try and attempt to get some map control. There's still players out here on the balcony and on the windows trying to stabilize position from Wildcard, but it really is half the round before these players are touching foot inside the map at all. Wildcard don't need to overextend. They don't need to think about trying to do too much back to the Knights, because they can sit here all day as the defense. The clock is their best friend right now, and the Knights are just not putting that pressure onto them.
Yeah, minute 20. Knights, I think maybe also, whether they are thinking about it or not, are probably giving a lot of respect to Wildcard. When you're going up against a really strong opponent, you don't really probably play overly aggressive, because you know even just one little slip up and you're going to get punished for it by a team like Wildcard. The opening frag in this case is going to go the way of Knights. This is decent. 55 seconds remaining, still a lot of time. Emoran was the one who was eliminated first by Josh. 50 seconds left here. Can Knights find a way forward?
Yeah, quite swiftly, in fact. They have themselves a little bit of an advantage. Pat will finally answer back for Wildcard, but quite the HP hit have Wildcard taken. Diesel is answering back. There's a few gunfights going off now to bring in a 3 versus 3 Xenox. With 30 seconds to go, Knights look poised to push in towards Dining and get the plant. That's a great shot from Strider.
Oh.
Ethan's going to get one back for Wildcard, and now the plant needs to start potentially going down.
Ethan pops the C4, doesn't find the target with such low health in a 1 versus 2 and only 15 seconds. Knights may just get the second round and tie things up already. And, well, that was always going to be pretty easy. Nice little off-angle held there, too, by Josh. Not sitting in the doorway, but just a little bit to the right of it. Was never really going to be sort of the crosshair placement there. 1-1. Knights showing what they've got.
It was a good round from them. I was criticizing in particular for being a little bit slow getting in and getting that map control, and it's really that they elected to not do the classic full floor clear on the top floor, take cocktail, put that pressure into reading. They just took what they needed, just a touch of piano, and then straight into mining and train. And that was pretty much it. A lot of pressure from the dining window, the white stairs, and just through winning their gunfights, they just established what they needed. Wildcard were left reeling trying to claw back at that stage. So I really liked that round in the end from the Knights. The second half of it in particular is fantastic. That means that Wildcard are going to rotate away from that site, decide not to repeat it. They're going down to kitchen.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
Not only that, but one thing I want to give massive credit to for Knights is the fact that they were able to even win reading fireplace, which has been proven to be quite difficult for attacking teams to do this season. So that should really give Knights, you know, a lot of confidence here. Not only have you taken a round off Wildcard already this early on from their defense, but you've done it on reading fireplace of Kafe too. So this is a great start for Knights now, all things considered. Yes, they didn't win the first round on Bar Cocktail, which, you know, typically has been ironically easier for attacking teams in recent times, but now we go down to kitchen, service cooking, and as I kind of said in the first series between Kami Sinister, it can be 50-50 here in terms of attack defense, who is able to take it. Knights up to their eyeballs here early on could very well take an early lead on Kafe.
I think just such an important aspect of that round is they've got a round on the board now. They're not looking at a 0. That's not creating that extra pressure for them to try and claw things back. They know they can do it. They got that round. They played it really well. It's not like Wildcard made massive mistakes. The Knights worked it beautifully. So I expect that that will help them just gain that momentum, feel a little bit more comfortable to play their playstyle against Wildcard. I think as long as they are a bit more careful with their intel, that's going to help them a lot. But that's not going to help them with Pat getting that opening kill. That's a great shot from the top floor, in fact, all the way to Dino, almost just coming out of spawn.
It's one thing that Knights are going to be really careful of. I mean, you never want to be down at a disadvantage in terms of how many players you've got alive, but when you're pushing up against Wildcard now with a 4 to 5 disadvantage, it just makes the task that much more harder. If you can't get that refrag, which in that case, probably not expected to get that sort of refrag. This is a nice little angle from Josh, though. Diesel peeks this. I probably suspect Josh wins that trade. You got the ACOG as well, makes it just that little bit easier, although he kind of loses the battle. Does drone him out. Diesel knows his position is, well, spotted. Minute and a half remaining here. Knight still just kind of stuck outside in some areas, pushing down red. I thought I saw someone pushing onto Diesel. He was taken very, very low here. So there are a couple of trades going out back and forth, and all of a sudden now it's a 3 versus 3. Knights able to push into Bakery as well here. We've got a round on our hands here, Raven.
Yeah, and very critical too, because Wildcard are playing a heavy Bakery strat with the rotate straight into sight. So they don't have to worry as much about opening that wall. They can get some extra line of sights, but they now have direct access. So a plant is so much more possible. It's just about setting up to be able to hold those angles and hold the plant. Pat pushes through. He's on a triple, Xenox. He might be in line for an ace here. With 55 seconds to go, there's still a lot of round left for the Knights to set this attack up.
It's only Hayward and Strider though, but they've got cooking open. Just had a triple so far for Pat. Is there any more to follow? He does get Hayward. Now just needs one more to get Strider as well, who's got the diffuser. Diesel's low from that earlier exchange at the bottom of red stairs and pushing around the corner. Pat has the ace completed as Strider just runs straight into him. And that is a way to start individually for Pat and for Wildcard.
What a beautiful round from Pat, and he played that last play perfectly, just behind the wall, playing that soft angle, playing the sound cue on the footsteps and pre-firing it. Textbook way to be able to take that 1v1 from a defender. So really well played from Pat, and just fragging out from Wildcard is something that's going to help them a lot. I think something that did really boost them is that pick onto Dino right at the start. Dino is one of the more prolific fraggers for the Knights, and to be able to lose him that early really will put a dent into their firepower.
Cocktail. We go again for Knights. I'd probably be a little bit disappointed that they weren't able to get more out of that round, considering it took literally an ace for Pat, or from Pat, to get Wildcard the win there. At one point, you know, it was 3 versus 3. Hayward and Strider had a chance towards the end as well for Knights, and booking in service can go 50-50. You've got to win a lot of those 1v1s, a lot of those little moments. In the end, I guess Pat won 5 of them.
We sure did. And on top of that, I mean, that Knights did get really good bakery control, and I highlighted they still had a minute left. I think they just tried to go a little too quick. With that bakery control, what really would have helped is just to sit back. Surely they had some drones in the pocket, be like, hey boys, let's drone it out. Let's figure out exactly where these wildcard players are sitting, and how can we use this final minute. But instead they decided to go straight in towards Kitchen, and they just went deep. They ended up losing some trades to Pat, and then they were just out of position at that stage. It was too late, even though there was still time on the board.
It's right now kind of a hard to read situation here on Kafe. Wildcard looks good, but Knights are challenging. But there's one thing where you're challenging, and there's another where you're really putting Wildcard sort of to the sword here. Right now, it just feels like Knights are definitely here, definitely giving Wildcard a bit of a challenge, but it's not so significant right now. Wildcard, Diesel's over in shop, Imran at Pixel, Pat as well over at bar. So a lot of forward pressure here for this bar cocktail hold. Lot facing the west side of Kafe.
They're going to be putting the Knights off a bit as well with that extra pressure. I mean, they had a lot of their push coming from the east side. Last time we saw them trying to attack bar cocktail. That was in fact the flawless round for Wildcard in round number 1. So they've really changed up this time. They've decided to really heavy take piano, which is a lot more traditional. But Wildcard have read into that. Their setup is now heavy on that side to perfectly counter this. Knights have been able to push through and gain piano control. Clearing out some of these castle barricades is going to force Wildcard back. So they do have some really great map control now, and they can start to work towards Freezer and clearing out Washroom.
Minute 20 seconds as well. So not horrible for time. Not great, not good, but not bad. Pat falls back just a bit towards the back of bar. No one in cocktail. 3 members. You got like 1 in washroom, backstore. Pat gets the opening frag onto Hayward, and this is very aggressive hold still from Wildcard, even after getting pushed back slightly.
I'm pretty sure Pat is the one that downed Dino as well. He's just taking straight up gunfights. The kill he got, I was so sure was the guy on Skylight. You're just not meant to win those kinds of gunfights, and Pat is just not afraid to be taking them right now, which is a real danger sign for the Knights here. They haven't been able to progress past Piano in the past minute. Haven't even really put that much damage onto Wildcard. So now they really can just sit back and just let Knights try and make more of these mistakes. Dino finally gets revived. But with 30 seconds to go and some still aggressive positions here from Wildcard, this could be a really tough plan.
Electrified reinforced wall doing a bit of damage to Strider. Just making life difficult for the Knights, and that's really what Wildcard just do best, making it difficult for the opponents. Fuses down, Pat finally going to be at least injured himself, but round is certainly over with. It's not going to be a flawless round, but it felt like it was in the end. Wildcard looking pretty clean so far on Kafe.
Some great crossfires established there. So as Pittsburgh Knights tried to aggress through bar and tried to make something happen, constantly revealing themselves into danger, and at least it was trades coming out from Wildcard. You can't lose at that stage. If you have perfect crossfires and trades set up, once you've got that man advantage, it's yours. And Wildcard displaying that beautifully means we're starting to see a full circle here back to reading Fireplace Xenox, which is in fact the only round that the Knights have at this stage.
Which is kind of the opposite to usually what we see. This is typically a defender's site to hold, which I'm going to say it actually spells probably bad news for Knights. I know they won it the first time around, Raven, like you said, but a Wildcard, you'd think, should be able to hold this site, which is typically the easiest one to hold, putting the pressure up on that 3rd floor. Mainly because you can just buy so much time, but also so much utility has to be used in clearing the 3rd floor, which is not even the bomb site. By the time you get to that 2nd floor, usually it's like drop downs or coming in from, different angles. You kind of just have to rush in and basically just frag out. You don't really have too much utility by that point. So, look, Knights did a good job of winning it the first time around. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it 2 times in a row.
thing that really facilitated that victory in that round number 2 was really that they didn't do that traditional push. They didn't clear across towards Cocktail. All they did was take mining, train, establish a couple of little crossfires in towards dining, and they won their gunfights. And that enabled them to be able to actually have that map control. Wildcard really failed on the retake in that aspect. We're already seeing some adaptation here from Wildcard in the way that they've set it up. And they're going to be ready for that kind of push from Knights now. So this is really more on the Knights to see how they can readapt to what Wildcard has set up to counter how they won that previous round.
Yeah, and readapt on the fly as well as they sort of see things and get the information from the way that Wildcard have set up to for this. Definitely seems like Knights aren't too concerned with putting a lot of pressure on this third floor. You see Emo at Pixel, I mean, just trying to get a bit of a gauge to see whether or not they're going to come through that top floor. Emo does find the opening frag onto Josh as well, so that pays dividends in the end for Wildcard.
Didn't even have to play it that aggressive, but it was maybe a little bit unpredictable, and the drones maybe hadn't pushed up forward. Josh exposing himself in that window, maybe not even realizing that Imarina's at Pixel, is quite the error from Knights to make in that first minute. They are putting on the pace here, though, opening up some holes in the wall and trying to aggress through bar in this first minute means that I'm really feeling it's more of a top floor clear here. And they're going to have to because there's such a presence from Wildcard.
You said they're going to have to, though, but if they, as they are now, they're coming in quite late, minute 40 seconds. You know, typically they've got about, I'd say, 30, 40 seconds to clear the rest of this third floor. So you've got to pick up the pace a bit, which if they do that, they may slip up. Knights can then really capitalize. Hayward just pushing around through the corridor, surprises Ethan, but Ethan was ready for it in the end anyway. He was so low on health, they almost sort of traded each other, quite literally. 1 for 1, but Ethan stays alive. That's the main thing. Dino pushes through washrooms, knows there's a player at the white stairs. Pat will cake out Dino. Right now, it's the Pat show for Wildcard. And for this series, a minute 10 remaining. Strider, Juicy, well, he's just under so much pressure. He's not even on the bomb site. Gio gets him through the floor, and it's going to be 4-1 to Wildcard.
Unless Juicy can pull something insane out right now, don't think that's really going to be the case. In fact, it looks like he's more likely to be taking a pseudo timeout here, given they've still got 50 seconds on the round. May as well just talk it out, figure out what they're going to do. It's going to be the final round of the half in the next round. As we said right at the start of this half, Xenox, we said if Knights can get at least 2 attack rounds, it really does keep them in the game.
I mean, clearly he's just saving for the next round, you know, right, Kappa?
Absolutely. Save the AWP.
I mean, look, typically, you know, we usually say, or at least I know Dev likes to say that there's no reason not to try. And I get that philosophy. But in a 1 versus 5 against Wildcard, I'd agree with you. And I'd say you're better off just taking this sort of like 50 seconds or so to just sort of rehash things over with the team. And as you said, have that pseudo timeout. And it's kind of what happened in the end. Wildcard, though, 4-1. They did all of the damage inside the first 2 minutes.
They did. And I think it was a great decision from the Knights to be able to talk it out. Because when you think about it, this operator select phase, it's 15 seconds. And then you have to think about your 6th pick. And then you're in with prep phase. So you don't have a whole lot of time to figure out what's going wrong if you're not already talking about it in the previous round in that kind of instance. And so for the Knights, I think it is really important they do what they can to secure this next round. Stay in touch, because if Wildcard go up 5-1, that's just 2 rounds away from a victory, and even just 1 round away from forcing overtime, which is already going to be quite the leg for the Knights to run.
Well, back down to kitchen, cooking and service for this final round of the half. It's shaping up to be a potential 5-1 in Wildcard's favor. Reminder, it is Knights' map pick as well, Raven. You know, I had mentioned it specifically that if they don't win this map, then I don't think we will see Theme Park. Right now, Knights, you know, they got that round win in round 2. Tied it up 1-1, and I thought, ooh, just maybe we might have something. But Wildcard have shown through their true colors and how strong they really are as a team. They aren't going to let themselves down here, and they're playing super well on defense. Of course, Knights will have their own defense to play after this, but it's been quite one-sided.
It has, and you know what? It is one thing of Wildcard. They have always been pretty much the kings of adaptation within the Oceanic region. And they are showing that here after that 1 round. Like you said, we thought Knights were on. This could be a game. But they've adapted to that so well, and every time we've seen repeated bomb sites, Wildcard have made the adjustments needed. They've been adapting to the way that the Knights have tried to attack. They're just not really giving them an extra look in. And that's where what we need to see from the Knights is their chance to readapt. That's what you have to be able to do to beat Wildcard. It's a bit of a long distance run. It's not a sprint. You don't usually 7-0 a team like Wildcard, so you have to be ready for the long haul.
I mean, do you really ever 7-0 a team like Wildcard? Usually they're the ones that may 7-0 you. That's not going to happen though. You brought up the fact that Knights, by picking up that, round win in round 2, don't have to worry about sort of that, humiliating 7-0. But I'm going to be honest with you, Raven. I mean, 7-1's not really that much better.
Yeah, still doesn't feel great.
Oh, what? Juicy fighting Pat. I mean, whether or not that was expected or not. Did he have the hole there in the doorway open?
I think it was just a pre-fire. I think Pat was actually rotating back down to play maybe with Emo, go back to site. It looked like he was just straight up running down the stairs, and I think Juicy was just purely opening the door. And you may as well pre-fire the stairs position if you're going to open the door. You're using the bullets anyway. And this is a great example of why you would do that, because it has netted them a kill and a good, nice early man advantage, which we haven't seen often from the Knights.
Not just that as well, but you've taken out Pat, who has just been on fire right now for Wildcard. So in unexpected fashion, he's now eliminated. You've got a man advantage. And the guy that's been firing on all cylinders is out of the round, at least for the final round of this half. Cooking and service. Wouldn't be surprised to now see Knights just sort of push back towards Bakery at around this time and really utilize their man advantage.
Last time we saw Kitchen cooking as well, it was in round 3, and it actually wasn't too shabby from the Knights. They had that Bakery control, and they had about a minute at that stage in a 3 versus 3. It looked somewhat winnable, so it's not like it was a total smack from Wildcard. In fact, that was the smack from Pat in that instance, with his ace there. Marine in a gunfight tagged up and traded out, so it's still a man advantage to the Knights, but time has really started to come against them here. With only 32 seconds to go, they're going to have to start really get moving.
It is forcing Wildcard, though, back over towards the site. Ethan taking a lot of damage in that exchange with Josh, but he comes out on top. Now 3 versus 3. No more gas canisters either available for Geo. Used his last one just prior. 18 seconds and vaulting that window. Dino's going to be punished by Diesel. Now the advantage over to Wildcard. At one point, the advantage was with Knights. Trade back, though. Hayward gets Diesel from above and from behind. Strider leaps over and takes out Geo. Now in a 1 versus 2, Ethan has a lot on his plate. The plant is going to go down from Strider. Diffuser is planted.
Refire though, he's going to give away his position, and the Knights do get the round in the end. Some good post plant. That castle barricade really was the thorn in the side of Ethan on that retake. And it does mean that we do get this 2-4 half. Does give the Knights that sniff they need going into the second.
Yeah, and I mean, going back, I did say earlier on, I can't remember if it was round 2 or round 3, but I said 2-4 would probably be ideal for Knights. It would be in the more expected realms of a possibility for them. 3-3 would have been amazing, in my opinion. So 4-2 in favor of Wildcard as they now attack and Knights go on the defense, I don't think is the end of the world. There's something here that they could build off. Bar Cocktail, if Knights can defend this, then you kind of backed him in for something like, say, Reading Fireplace, and who knows, then you've got a map on your hand 4-4 at that point.
Attackers need to
Really is the telling sign now. They have to back themselves with these defenses. They've got to have picked this map for a reason, and usually a lot of the rationale behind why you might pick a map, it comes down to a lot of different things. But you want to be really strong in your defenses, because that's usually what you can strat the easiest. You strat your setups, the way that it plays out through your dry runs. Defense is just generally more of a comfort, and you want to know that you're comfortable in your defenses on a map, and just work on your attacks. And usually when your attack halves, well, then it feels easier at least. It's a simplified way of looking at it. So the Knights really should be expected here to excel on their defenses compared to their attacks especially.
I say that, and I do agree with you, but when you're going up against Wildcard, it's hard to look at the simplifying matters such as, should do better on defense versus attack. And you're going up against Wildcard, they play attack defense, but at such a high level on both sides that it's almost like there is no advantage to either one. They can demolish you on both attack and defense. See how it plays out though. Trying to just see how Knights have set up for this one. Guess I'll Strider sitting at bar. I just want to know whether or not they are playing super aggressive to that western front, or if they are sitting back a little bit. Well, they're sitting back a lot. No one in Pixel either.
Attackers have located.
Oh, that's what I'm really surprised about as well. It's just more so Hayward's just going to play aggressive in Cigar Shop, which is quite a difficult spot because as he's looking right now, that's where you get cut off, is that skylight rotate. If someone was on that, he can be just trapped in Cigar. Pinch from red stairs, pinch from the windows. There's a lot of ways to be able to shut that down, so he really does have to be careful in that spot. But I think that really is just the Knights' playstyle. They have generally been quite aggressive in the way that they play, and especially the defenses. They'll really come up right into your face, so that you don't have that comfort in obtaining map control.
So done from Ethan. We'll take out Hayward and
Located by attackers.
take out pretty much. You can see it there actually on your screens, Ray. But they've taken out the only member that was really holding that western floor.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that play because look, Hayward literally was right in their face, and they shut it down. So now they do have that map control. And the other great thing about Pixel, besides the fact that it puts pressure on players trying to take that, is usually it requires a bit of a utility dump. You have to try and clear a shield, ADSs, magnets if you're putting the 1Y magnets there. But that's not the case. So it's not just that Wildcard have the map control, they still have a lot of utility left to clear other things that may not feel as critical depending on their placement. I feel like Wildcard are definitely poised for a good spot here, but Dino's got something else to say about that. Actually hits his first for the scoreboard. He's in the game. 40 seconds to go. Wildcard are going to have to start making some good progress towards this plant.
Just roaming around on that second floor, just below. This is much better. Strider's been sitting around the back of bar here, watching the skylight for a while, and it's now paying dividends towards the back end of this round. Round number 7. Next Cairo is going to go out from Diesel, finally opening up the back store. Strider's low though, in the middle of bar, and a nade may just be enough to finish him off. Fortunately though, that's going to be stopped as well. Everything going the way of Knights all of a sudden with 6 seconds left. Diesel is going to get the plant down. Imran watching. Never mind, he's actually going to be denied at the last second. Knights win the round. They win it in style towards the end, and a lot of that thanks to Strider here playing at bar.
Ended up working out beautifully for the Knights. In fact, once they had lost Hayward, they just looked in control. Wildcard did have that map space cleared that they needed, but they weren't able to actually work any picks, and in the end, they never really had a chance to clear some of that utility. That aggressive shield in bar really did help out the Knights quite a lot. And the magnets around Cigar meant that because of the timing that Wildcard had, that real late round push, not much had been cleared, and it came back to bite them. So that was a great defense from Knights, and as we're talking about at the start of the round, Xenox, they're only 1 round behind now. This is starting to look like it could be a great map.
Attackers need to
Yeah, and that's what I said before though. You win bar cocktail now at the beginning of this half, you switch over then to reading fireplace after that, and you can tie things up 4-4. And all of a sudden, this map is anyone's game from that point. The fact that Knights are on defense, you know, from here on out, comes down to potentially. I mean, I don't want to just necessarily give them the win here on reading fireplace. Yes, it's going to be a strong site for them to hold, but I do feel as if it's going to come down to service and cooking and kitchen.
Stop worrying about grenades.
Yeah, that could be the kicker map there that really does decide this, but I mean, Wildcard also lost reading fireplace, so this could be a round that the Knights lose. It could be a new little against the grain thing, so we'll see how they hold it. I love that they're using Castle, and something that we noticed a lot as well with the Akami Sinister matchup, a lot of Castle play on Kafe. It really is a great map for Castle just to be able to deny some of those line of sights, and the way that the attack will move through a map, having to clear those barricades is quite crucial.
Yeah, typically for, you know, first floor, second floor bomb sites, you know, kitchen, reading fireplace, we have been seeing Castle tonight. Not so much for bar and cocktail, not quite as significant there at all times, but see how Wildcard play this. I wouldn't be surprised to see them sort of rush through like top red and try and clear out Cigar and push through this third floor. A quick pace, if they can do that, the Knights can then be put under pressure. They got what, Josh Hayward over in cocktail. I think one more player sitting over at white stairs as well. So very much, it's juicy. Very much standard defense here from Knights for this reading fireplace.
It's quite the classic. Hayward looking to get aggressive again. He's now moving towards Pixel. No one really holding an angle on it at this stage, and he's moving quite late, so not sure whether Wildcard have already pre-droned that. Could catch them off guard here. Playing in Cigar, as well as the piano window, means there is some pressure in this position. Hayward will need to be careful if he doesn't want to be the opening death yet again. Strider, this is a nice little cheeky angle under the train, and in fact, it kind of looks like Wildcard might even do what we saw from the Knights in that successful attack, is to take through train and go for more of that dining push.
Yeah, Trader Mining could be the play here for Wildcard. Really catch Knights off guard. It seems like it started that way. Imran's going to be getting that opening frag onto Strider. And again, has another trade back. In fact, Hayward's found two somewhere.
Attackers drop.
Aggressive in that top floor, and now Dino's gone off, and all of a sudden, actually, Xenox, it's up to Ethan.
What?
And he's actually not going to even get a chance. The Knights just absolutely steamrolling over Wildcard in that round in a matter of about 20 seconds. Just completely ended it.
Well, that's 3 rounds won in a row now in favor of Pittsburgh Knights. It was 4-1 in favor of Wildcard. Looked as if we were heading towards an expected result, a bit of a thrashing potentially. But Knights are here to play and make a stand here on Kafe. Their map pick, 4-4 and down to kitchen surface cooking. And like I said, this could be the difference maker in terms of who comes out with, in the end, the map win.
Was a 50-50 win rate for the teams in the first half. Wildcard getting a defense, Knights getting an attack on it. So we'll see how it goes for Knights here. But a lot of the pressure has to have started to shift towards Wildcard, you'd think, at this stage. Coming into this game being the first seed, they would be so confident in themselves, as always, and as they should be. And the Knights maybe coming in as fourth seed. Just that touch pressure, you know, coming against an opponent like Wildcard. But here we are. It's 4-4, and on top of that, it's the fact that the Knights have really come back from being down 4-1 3 rounds in a row. It means that Wildcard have to really stave this off here if they don't want it to go to at least 3 maps.
Kind of similar as well, looking back to the Akami Sinister series when Sinister were up 4-1 on Kafe. From that point onwards, it was the Akami show. They ended up taking it 7-5. Now, I'm not saying, Raven, that it's going to happen here again in favor of Knights over Wildcard, because that would be a huge upset for that to happen. But right now, it is trending in that direction, and it's up to Wildcard to stop that.
Could lightning strike twice. We all have to see. Kafe might be the map for it tonight. As you said at the start, it's quite a popular pick in Six Masters. We've seen it played a very big amount. In fact, I believe I called it the House of Xenox, because this was the first competitive map that you really started to learn, and I think we practice cast, right? It was on Kafe.
I think it was actually the first map I casted for Six Masters too, so that's name was Xenox. But right now, Knights wanting to make it their home as well. It is their map pick, of course, so feel confident, and that's where you got to kind of back yourselves in as a team, rather than trying to take Wildcard to a map that they would feel less confident on. Take them to a map that you feel confident on. Back yourselves in. That's what Knights has done here. It's working so far. This is, of course, kitchen bomb site here for round 9. We're just going to slowly make his way through this 3rd floor, clear it out. Minute 48 seconds. A lot of time still left for Wildcard. They do like to take their time, and then at the last 20 seconds or so, make their push and try and take the site.
That can be really detrimental on this style of attack. So for that bottom floor, it is really common that teams will try to do this full top-down clear, but what it usually results in is very little time when it actually gets to site for a plant. And that can really work against Wildcard as a team that are normally slow. The Knights are really taking the fight. They got that opening kill, but Wildcard have evened it out. And as we're talking about the time zones, I mean, we're really close to the final minute here. There's a lot of strange setups on site, a lot of line of sight. This is really going to come down to some really solid gunfights from the Knights to be able to hold this. And this aggression from Dino is not going to work out. Ethan hitting his shots beautifully there.
Oh, traded back though immediately. +1 more with Diesel going down elsewhere to Juicy. 1 versus 3 now all of a sudden for Ema, and he's in a tricky situation, but Juicy is injured and Hayward is low, so it's not impossible with 45 seconds to go here. Already onto service and does have the diffuser in hand. So really, for a 1v3, still technically 1v3, this is about as good as it can get for Emo. Pushes now into cooking, expecting reinforcements to come. Juicy has been revived, brought back up, standing. Emo's being so aggressive, doesn't want to go for the plant, wants to go for the kills because he's got so much time. Takes out the camera as well. 20 seconds left now for Emo, playing this so well. Opens up the wall, can now put the plant here and then hold into Bakery.
15 seconds to go.
And try and stick this diffuser. 3 seconds left on the timer. He's going to be able to get this down. No, it gets pushed. The Knights actually come back from the brink there. Thought it was going to be a clutch, but no, they will get it. That's their 4th in a row, and in fact, the first time in this match that they have the lead.
Well, he's spitting facts right now, Raven. 4 in a row. First time they've got the lead. Everything's looking up for Pittsburgh Knights. 2 more rounds. Can they get it? Can they shock the world, basically, if they can take this map away from Wildcard already having barely scraped in? I mean, like, barely. As close as you could scrape into the playoffs, Ray, but that's what Knights did. They certainly didn't come in with a commanding authority about themselves. In fact, they lost, like, the majority of their games, their last couple of games. I think it was the last 4 games they've lost. I haven't got it up on my screen. I probably should have that. But kind of get where I'm going. I was right, actually. There you go. Awesome.
Yeah. Locate and
me.
defuse bombs.
Good job, bro. Yeah, look, it's been a great performance from them, and I pointed out in the map veto phase that the most recent match that the Knights did play in the regular season was against Wildcard, and that second map was on Villa, but it was a 5-7, so it was quite close. And I know the Knights really back themselves against these big teams. They have a lot of confidence in their abilities, and they are some of the young gunners of this scene. I mean, looking at their average age, they got 2 players on 18 and another player on 19. They are much younger compared to the Wildcard roster. So in a game like Siege and FPS, sometimes it can really come down to that, young gunner ability to take it up against some structure.
That young gun reaction time, is that what you're alluding to?
Exactly.
Well, there's also the older head experience that Wildcard have got for these 10 situations. That is a pretty significant advantage. So there's pros and cons to all of that. Right now, Knights are just playing better Siege. In the last 4 or 5 rounds, they've looked better, playing pretty well. Wildcard just haven't really, in my opinion, thrown anything too crazy at them for their attack. Like, they're playing more basic. They're just, it's hard to explain. Like, Wildcard just haven't looked like the Wildcard that we have been seeing in the regular season. That complete and utter domination, not even letting their opponent get a peek in. Right now, they're allowing Knights to get the full viewing party.
That can really just come down to as well. Kafe attacks can be tricky, and the Knights, like we've said before, they must have picked this map for a reason. I really feel like a lot of that's going to come down to supreme confidence in their defenses. I mean, right now they are flawless on their defenses, winning all 3 that they've played. So it's up to Wildcard now to figure out how to attack this. And if any team is going to be able to do that, it's going to be Wildcard. Their adaptation is world class. So these next few rounds are really going to be a telling sign for how this series might play out.
Yeah, for sure. Juicy just spotting. Still one going by down. This is super aggressive 1v1 play. Juicy not letting up from the shop at Cigar. There's really Knights, I think, just taking it to Wildcard right now in all aspects. These 1v1 exchanges, not falling back, not trying to be too scared. And Pat has been sort of the shining beacon of light for Wildcard through even the Dark Storms, finding the opening frag onto Hayward.
Very, very important engagement there to be able to try and get that entry in. A lot of gunfights coming out here, and time has actually started to tick away. The aggression, the trade there makes it a 3 versus 2. It is still in favor of Wildcard. Diesel downs though, so it is 2 versus 2. He's revived, but they've got a little bit of time. They're just going to send it, in fact, into Bar Xenox here.
The backstore was Dino. He did his job, at least momentarily. Does get a eventually eliminated. Gio's going to get the plant down. Josh has got a 1v2 task at hand. He's able to move away from that grenade, takes no damage from it. Has got 45 seconds, coming in from a different angle now, pushing in through Cigar Shop to catch them off guard. Both Imran and Gio towards Cocktail. You think from here with a 2v1 advantage, Wildcard should get the round, and they stem the bleeding for now.
And what was fantastic about that is they basically just stopped the Knights being the aggressors. They just said, you know what, let's just push. We talked about maybe the age, the reaction time of Knights, and that could be an advantage to them. I think Wildcard really just showed that they can deal with that with their own aggression. They pushed through that Cigar Shop in those tricky positions. They cleared out Hayward and the mute player that was in the cigar closet. And they just kept going. We saw them yeet into bar, down the white hallway. They were not afraid to take those gunfights, and it really changed the round because previously we just saw them try to work a little pick here and there, try and get the diffuser down in the corner, and clearly that wasn't working out.
I think looking at it also from a plus for Knights, they kind of went down in style there too, right? Like they were taking fights, they weren't scared, they weren't backing away from Wildcard. Yeah, they didn't win the round, but they played like they wanted to win the round. They definitely didn't just allow Wildcard to run over the top of them. 5-5, and we've definitely got a series on our hand. Knights have been playing very well. They're taking it right up to Wildcard, but as we've said, it's now up to Wildcard to respond. They did that in the last round, and we'll see if they're going to be able to do it again. Bar Cocktail, once again.
First time all map as well that we're actually seeing a repeated bomb site back to back. Knights obviously figuring out that there are some things they can change to make this count.
10 seconds to go.
I think it's just going to be about reading Wildcard because now they know they've got two modes. There's the classic Wildcard that's very methodical and slow, or there's the aggressors, which we saw in that previous round, which worked out. And if anybody can step it up and back the aggression part, surely it's the Knights. We have seen them with ruthless attacks and some really uncharacteristic style aggressive defenses before.
But that's what makes the best teams, though. They're not one-dimensional. Got multiple ways of playing, as you said, whether you go slow, methodical, precise gameplay that Wildcard's typically known for, or a bit more aggressive, a bit more hellish and let loose. And the fact that puts a bit of which Wildcard are we going to get here?
Have to see, and the Knights are going to have to keep a keen eye on that. Playing a little bit patient right now, though. Waiting to see Wildcard plan to reveal themselves. Striders, in fact, moved that pixel shield to face more towards white. So maybe thinking that this push is really coming from the east side. Not much has come away from Wildcard at the moment, but they do have multiple players already down on the second floor through reading there. I saw on the outlines. They are looking to protect the flank and maybe even make some disruption from that vertical position.
Dino sitting in the back store again. Paid dividends last time, but just like last time, Wildcard get the opening frag again. This is becoming a theme now. They are responding to the threat of Knights, and Wildcard could be on the verge of all of a sudden getting match point when Knights were just steamrolling through for, you know, a good couple of rounds. Wildcard have just flicked a switch, found a gear, finding these opening frags now with ease, and they're not getting refragged either. This is the biggest problem for Knights right now. And then they lose a second one, and right now it's just a repeat of the last round. Knights haven't seemingly learnt their lesson.
Yeah, it's almost like Wildcard have actually just become even more aggressive and thorough. This is the position they were in with about 30 seconds to go in the previous round. But now there's a minute to go. Pat's walking down White Hallway. He has access to this shield. So this White Stairs player could be in a lot of trouble here, maybe not able to retake. C4 could help that, though. It's going to come out, not shot, and in fact, it will hit the mark. It's going to help a little bit, but still Wildcard with a lot of control, and they're putting so much pressure onto the Knights.
Still got those advantages. Dino sitting in backstore hasn't really got involved yet either, because a lot of these kills are just coming from a distance on this west side from Cigar Lounge. Josh sitting in Cocktail. So I was about to say two of the big sort of sites still being held, but Gio just gets a quick double. One on Cocktail, one on backstore. The round one in total by Wildcard. 6-5 match point.
Even more dominating than the previous round, and Wildcard just showing that they've adapted to how the Knights are trying to defend that side. And I honestly feel like maybe a bit of a mistake there, Xenox trying to repeat the bomb site. I think especially a team like Wildcard, you don't want them to settle in. I don't think a whole lot changed from the Knights there. They changed the pixel shield position, but they never really had that extra aggression towards Piano, so they took that control a lot quicker. But Wildcard still played aggressive, and they were just better at watching their flanks this time. So they had a much better chance at winning that round. The Knights are going to finally rotate it off to Reading, which we saw them successful last time. Maybe they can bring this back to overtime. We might be going the full distance.
I just wonder, maybe if they chose Bar Cocktail to give themselves a chance of actually winning the map. If you go Reading Fireplace first, yeah, maybe it goes 6-5 in your favor, you get match point, but then you've got to, you know, go back to Bar Cocktail or Kitchen or whatever, where maybe Wildcard have got more of a chance. By winning Bar Cocktail first, then going to Reading Fireplace, Knights would have been in a position to go and win this map 7-5. That backfires though, now Wildcard have got match point. Fortunately for Knights, in the back pocket is a pretty difficult bomb site to take for the attackers. And were successful on their defense first go around were the Knights. We'll see if they are successful again here to at least send it to overtime, like you said.
10 seconds.
And they did win it in quite strong fashion last time. They only lost one player. They had 4 still alive at the end of the round. And it was that round where it was just in the spate of about 20 seconds. They just won all these gunfights. Absolutely obliterated Wildcard. So again, it's going to come down to that long-term adaptation here from Wildcard. If they remember back to how they lost it last time, what the Knights did, what will they do this time? Given the aggression they've been bringing out in these Bar Cocktail attacks in the previous 2 rounds, I feel like some of that might carry over, and that really could be a difficult thing for the Knights to deal with.
Disastrous to deal with, really.
Located a bomb.
Wildcard have shown, really, actually both Wildcard and Knights have shown, you know, the thing with Reading Fireplace is it can be penetrable if you push through, like mining, for instance, and train and take that different approach rather than dropping down onto the 3rd floor, clearing out, using a lot of utility to take that 3rd floor verticality. Josh and Cocktail, Hayward's roaming around, but it seems like only 2 players have been committed to this 3rd floor defense, which kind of give credence to the fact that maybe expecting Wildcard to play through something like training in mind.
Yeah, I think they're trying to give themselves that extra flexibility in where Wildcard might attack. Already quite swift here from Wildcard, taking in through Cigar Shop, in on that sledge. They can really progress up and put some pressure. Aware that Washroom is clear, so this is really good progress from Wildcard. It's going to allow them to put a lot of pressure on the Cocktail at a time they really need it. And now they have a lot of options. They could start to work towards mining and train. They'll have to deal with Strider, or they can clear across to Cocktail, which looks like that's the play. They're putting a lot of pressure onto these guys here.
A minute 30 seconds remaining. Match point for Wildcard. 2 players sitting inside a Cocktail can drop down if need be. Juicy finds the opening frag with the C4 onto Ethan. Good news for Knights. They've now got the man advantage.
Headed back pretty swiftly there by Pat, though. It's 1 fragger off the board for Wildcard at least. It's Pat and Ethan that are really putting the numbers up for their team. That was a beautiful C4 from the hatch from Juicy, I've got to say, taking out Ethan. Dino here ready to repeat it, but it looks like Wildcard are reading into that. They're not going to have a bar of it. In fact, speaking of bar, they've gone in through bar. Diesel is there trying to put a lot of pressure onto Cocktail now. Looks like they have that control. They are shutting down Josh, who's the remaining Knights player upstairs. It means they will have that vertical control with about 40 seconds left to play.
Is it all just falling apart for Knights at the seams? Strider's got something to say, though, and at least ties it up 3-3 with 30 seconds remaining. Match point on the line here against the Knights here, who are defending, though. At the very least, Wildcard will have to push onto them. Strider, Dino, and Juicy remain, and they're all on this 2nd floor now, expecting to push the drop down from Wildcard. Strider sitting in laundry, expecting someone to drop down. Geo
10 seconds remaining.
over towards Pillar, over towards 90 now as they make their push in towards the corridor, and it's a Strider opening pick in this 3v3. Now down to a 2v2. 1v2 though. Diesel's going to be able to get the diffuser down, expecting the push, shoots through the vault. Knights win the round, send it to overtime in what was a very, very stressful situation.
It was, and really Wildcard just didn't give themselves enough time in the end. They were able to, they ended up telegraphing exactly what they were pushing. They didn't shoot that default, and with only a small amount of time to go, can't really rotate at that stage. You have to commit, and the Knights just had great positioning, really great flexibility. They had 1 person playing around that dining, 1 person playing around reading, and then that other flexing in between with the laundry hallway position. It meant that they could just where they needed to go. So I liked that end from the Knights there, and we are seeing overtime Xenox. This is going down to the wire, and the Knights will be the ones starting on defense for this.
Yep, Wildcard will continue their attack. So far, Knights, though, have looked pretty good on defense. We'll see, of course, if that will continue here into overtime.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
Over to cooking and service for our first round of overtime. Our first overtime of the playoffs as well. We didn't get any in the Akami Sinister series, which, if you had said which series would provide the first overtime, I would have definitely said Akami Sinister. But here we are on Kafe, 6-6 between Wildcard and Knights. If you've just joined us, definitely started off all Wildcard. It was 4-2 in the first half. Since then, though, Knights themselves have gone 4-2. And of course, well, you do the math, we're here at overtime 6-6.
Speaking of overtime, I'm just looking at some history here in the Knights. They ended up playing 2 overtime maps in the Six Master season. And in fact, they lost both of those. One was to Sinister, it was a 7-8, and the other was to Okami, and that was a 6-8. So also both really strong opponents. Again, showing that they can go the distance against these top caliber teams. But we are up against Wildcard here. They themselves, they only played 1 overtime map, and they won at 8-7. They're looking pretty good so far, but the Knights have shown they're strong on these defenses.
Wildcard, though, of course, is strong in general. Not going to be an easy team to push aside. Whether or not Knights are strong on defense doesn't really matter. Wildcard sort of get the opening frag, you kind of back them in from that point onwards. But that's never as easy as that. A lot of pressure being applied here in Bakery. Ethan just seeing what he can find over this wall. I wonder if Wildcard just maybe slow things down a little bit. Not that they're going at a supersonic pace, Raven, but things haven't really been going their way right now. And again, Strider finds Pat, who's been their best player probably for Wildcard so far.
Yeah, it's been a really important shutout here for the Knights, getting Pat nice and early. Or at least they got Ethan nice and early in the previous round as well. It just set them in a nice spot. One less of those aggressive fragging players that have been really showing up for Wildcard. So with half the round expelled, the Knights are in a great spot right now. They have a lot of line of sights here that make it sketchy for Wildcard to even take site and try and plant. And it means that Wildcard will have to try and obtain a bit extra map control, some of that verticality at least, so they can try and work something here with the bomb sites.
And the main thing is that they don't just rush in at the last second. They've got to continue to try and clear out, find a pick, and then push in. Knights, though, still got a bit of utility remaining, still got a foothold that they control pretty much all of this kitchen, cooking, and service area. There is 55 seconds, though. I mean, to me, it feels like there's not that much time, but in a way, there kind of is. There won't be that much more time, though, and this round is kind of shaping up to be a bit of a funnel last-second push-in from Wildcard at probably the 20-second mark.
Man, maybe peeking into those flashes wasn't the play. A lot of frags coming out there, though. It makes it a 3 versus 3 at this stage. With 30 seconds, there is still, like you said, a little bit of time, but it is going to slowly head away. If Wildcard take too much longer to really get some structure happening, it's going to come down to that under 10 seconds to plant or frag out, essentially. Knights can just play in these passive positions. Strider's trapped here, though, and he's getting pinched beautifully by Wildcard. 15 seconds, Denox, it's going to explode.
10 seconds remaining. 5 seconds remaining.
5 seconds, the plant's going down from Imarin at the bins. Being covered, but not well enough by Geo. Dino hits that shot. The plant is successful, but almost gets it with Imarin standing up at the right time. Not getting enough shots onto Hayward. He clutches it out for the Knights, and that means that they will move forward to match point. They will be up 7-6.
Defenders disable the diffuser.
Beautiful round from the Knights in the end. They just stalled it out from Wildcard. Wildcard again falling into that trap of just being a touch too slow and having to rely on those explosive gunfights onto site. Just didn't work out with that minimal time. So, moving forward now, Wildcard will get a chance at defense, which has been very dominant for this entire map. Looking at both sides, obviously it was 4 defense wins in each half, so 8 total from a lot of rounds played. So we'll see whether Wildcard can bring this back, or whether this will be one of the few rounds that the Knights can get on their attacks. We'll see.
What about that, Raven?
That's fine, man.
Still, overtime match point, definitely the point it wouldn't have expected Knights to be in at this present time. And for Wildcard, maybe the first time in this particular match, betting a little bit, right? There hasn't really been too many situations here on Kafe where Wildcard have been behind. Definitely behind now. And the pressure certainly mounting on them. If Knights take Kafe, it at least gives them a chance moving forward to win the series rather than try and salvage the series.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about Wildcard, or maybe just the way that they've been feeling this pressure, I felt like they would have felt it once the Knights did tie things up at 4-4, and even maybe once they jumped ahead that inch. But yeah, right now, with this map potentially slipping away, it's not going to feel too great for Wildcard. That being said, they aren't strangers to best of threes in the way that they play out. And, you know, this was the Knights map pick, so maybe they would have been coming in as confident in themselves, but thinking, you know what, even if the Knights get the first map, that's their pick. They can have it. We're going to smack them in the next two. Some teams just have that kind of, that gusto in them, and they're okay to be able to deal with that. I feel like Wildcard will be one of those teams.
Well, let's see how they perform when it matters the most. This right now definitely matters the most right now for Wildcard, that they don't lose the first map in a series where many predicted a 2-0 clean sort of job from Wildcard, move on to the upper bracket, send Knights down. Without being rude to Knights, but never necessarily disregarded them, but definitely didn't think that they would be able to take a map off Wildcard.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't looking likely. So they've been putting in a great effort here. And it's not like Wildcard are terrible at Kafe. They haven't played it that much though. I mean, looking back at Six Masters, they played it once and they won it. That was against Okami, and that was really strong, in fact. And before that, they've had some great performances on Kafe, even at a global scale. Famously against Na'Vi, they had a solid map on Kafe. But at the end of the day, Knights have looked good on it. And here we are, they are on match point. So far, not much challenging on Wildcard in terms of the pressure from the Knights. Taking some great vertical map control though, which will start to facilitate a good attack.
Minute 27 seconds remaining. Geo finding a decent amount of information here on the pulse. Strider just draining through. Train having a bit of a peek as well. So quite a bit of time here for Knights as they continue to just sort of shuffle their way around. Geo with the pulse though. 1C4 and a dream at some point. He's going to be a factor. Reading Fireplace is always difficult to take, but Knights have got momentum. There's something behind them that's sort of just pushing them forward here to potentially get a map win against Wildcard. When you've got confidence, your back is up. Potentially for Wildcard, this might be their way forward. Nice opening frag onto Hayward, but as Knights go time, as they start to push in, Juicy with a frag, and the entry frag is decent, and then gets the double kill as well. Oh, the Diesel up onto the next floor. Nice shot from Josh, and it's 2 versus 2. Knights have been able to put a spanner in the works here against Wildcard in this overtime match point. Ethan and Nemo versus Strider and Josh. And Strider's going to be able to get this diffuser down.
15 seconds to go.
Alright, but it's all covered. That C4 beautifully placed there from Ethan. Josh knows that he's surrounded right now. He's going to try and take these gunfights. He'll get some shots onto that Jaeger. Not a down though. The pinch beautifully coming out. Wildcard salvaging that. It was close. But speaking of close, 7-7 now Xenox. It has come down to just this round.
Oh, man, this has gone the, well, it's obviously gone the distance. We're going to round 15. There's no more after this. It's match point for both teams now. 7-7. You would think the morale, if you're Knights losing this, would be pretty detrimental, right? Like, it would be heartbreaking for them. They have been the better team up until this point, minus the first 4 rounds. But then lose in this last overtime match point would be heartbreaking. I don't know if they would then have what it takes to come back on Clubhouse after this and try and send it to that tiebreaker map on Theme Park.
I think in the context of the series, this really is such a critical map for the Knights to get, being their map pick, but also, of course, it gives them that opportunity to, at worst, take it to map number 3. And that could be really surprising for Wildcard, because we haven't seen the Knights play Theme Park, and it is in as the decider. So the Knights could really pull out some crazy stuff, and that could be something that secures them this actual series against Wildcard, and that is all facilitated by winning this first map. As you said, it really would be heartbreaking for the Knights. They are this close to getting themselves that potential opportunity.
Attacker's objective is to locate a bomb and defuse it.
Not going to count them out just yet. They are on the defense here for this final overtime match point. They probably earned the right to be on the defense here as well. Wildcard attacking. I feel like probably Wildcard wouldn't be too stressed here, because even if they lose Kafe, not their map pick, they'd back themselves in quite heavily on Clubhouse and then Theme Park for sure, without a doubt.
It's very spread vertically here. And reading Fireplace, we've seen this stretch pretty sporadically across who wins and who loses. In fact, I feel like in this match, this has been the most open in terms of wins and losses. This hasn't been a set thing for defenses and definitely not a set thing for attacks. So what better way to decide the entire map than on the site that's been the most flip-flop?
Certainly agree with you. You know, typically you'd say defense holds out here and Knights take it, but you say, you know, it's been going back and forth, attack, defense here on reading Fireplace, more so than usual. And then the fact is that it's Wildcard who are attacking. They've been able to, for the most part, usually get the opening frag. Diesel does spot Josh, who's just so fortunate to stay alive there. You get Josh, then it's only Hayward sort of protecting Cocktail as well. Not only do you get the opening frag, but then you clear out most of that third floor. In the end, he stays alive. Buys a bit more time here now for Knights, and it's in the end now time for Strider, who gets the opening frag. Nade thrown in, doesn't quite connect.
No, and then he actually just vaults right into the bullets of Immerin from above, so it's traded out at least. Clock has ticked away severely though, with just a minute to go. Means that Wildcard are really only just now able to push towards Cocktail, droning it out to see that it's clear and Immerin can move through. The Knights will have to hold fast, given that Wildcard have this vertical control. They can now dictate the direction of the push. The Knights are going to have to really spread out. You see two here holding this reading position. If there's a pick coming vertically here in favor of the Knights, I think that could really be a turning point for them.
Strider just sitting in train. Two more around the bomb site, reading Fireplace. 30 seconds left. Wildcard usually are the team that wins these sort of last 20-second engagements where they get these frags, they push in. Pat and Ethan.
Bomb located by attackers.
Now they're going to get this plant down. They've got the cover as well, but the cover's going to be the one who gets eliminated. Is there a second one? No, there's not. Now it's a 3 versus 1. Wildcard have just cleaned up when it matters the most. Wildcard come out on top in a barnstorming finish. Knights gave it their all, but they fall short at the final hurdle in a heartbreaking fashion.
And it really was just on the edge for them. They really could have got that. I think in that round, they just gave Wildcard a bit too much room. They were able to just move through to reading, and they'd already had such great positioning set up to cover that plant. I think too late at that stage from the Knights, but what a map from them. It really was a great effort.
It really was a good effort for Knights. Like they're the sort of, I guess, focal point as well here for this, even though they technically didn't even win the map, right? But they made it oh so competitive. 8-7 to Wildcard. Our favorites to win the playoffs as well for Six Masters, Raven, but they probably weren't expecting it to be that close for their first match here in the semi-final.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure they weren't underestimating their opponents, but to be able to take it that kind of distance from the Knights, I think it's probably surprised a lot of people. And it definitely makes the rest of the series quite interesting, whether they can back it up on other maps. Of course, Kafe was their map pick, so of all the maps for them to take, you would have expected that was definitely their best chance.
Yeah, look, it would have been their best. Well, I mean, it went to 8-7. It went to that final overtime match point. They had a match point as well prior to that. So 2 match points going begging for Knights on their map pick. It really couldn't be said any more clear than that was probably the best chance that you're going to get. It's saying that tonight's been a bit wacky so far as we head to Clubhouse later on. Who knows? Maybe Knights just sort of continued that form, that newfound form there on Kafe, bring it over to Clubhouse, and that's where the surprise could happen. So you don't want to count them out just yet, especially after the performance they just showed for us.
Yeah, they really have shown that they can read into Wildcard and adapt on the fly. They did a great job doing so when they were down 4-1. They brought that back with 2 attack rounds at least in that first half, and they really leaned into their defenses. I feel like it's going to be a similar story on Clubhouse. It's just a matter of exactly how much they can replicate that.
Well, we're going to have that story on the other side of the break. Right now, Wildcard leading Knights 1-0 after that Kafe win.
Attackers drop the diffuser. Seconds to go. Time to go. Bomb located by attackers. Attackers drop the attackers are activating.
Loading new magazine.
Please hold. Your call is very important to us. All operators are busy at this time.
I was in the past, I'm unattached. Only focus in this moment is bringing the summer back. Oh, respect my grind, elevate souls, and I spread good vibes. Young divine, you know I gotta shine. Raise your hands for a good time. Aight.
Vibe until the morning, sleep until the noon. You said that you want it, so I got it for you. Let's all get together and show them how we move. We move, we move.
3, 2,
Bringing
1,
summer to
drop.
you.
Oh, ready, let's go. 'Cause you know how we roll. Let's take it round the world and back again. Ready, let's go. 'Cause you know, like I know, we'll take it round and round. Yo, hold up, let me switch my flow up. Back in high school, they were telling me I'll blow up. Doing talent shows and man, everyone will show up. Got in an accident and still made it for them to go nuts. You know what? I'm so what? I'm so That means I can't describe the way I vibe, the way I slide. And with the rhymes that make the dimes, I'll close their eyes and fantasize. I'm divine calling their phone number. Yeah. No, you know I love it. And you know me, I can't sleep without blazing beats. On stages for their ones gracefully. And I got a smile that they hate to see. Young, black, successful, though life gets stressful. Though life gets stressful, go and vibe out with whoever you next to.
Vibe until the morning, sleep until the noon.
Yeah.
You said that you want it, so I got it for
Got it.
you. Let's all get together and show them how we move. We move, we move.
3, 2,
Bringing
1,
summer to
drop.
you.
Oh, ready, let's go. 'Cause you know how we roll. Let's take it round the world and back again. Ready, let's go. 'Cause you know, like I know, we'll take it round and round.
Knights gave it everything that they had on Kafe, but they fell short of the mark. 7-8 as it went the way of Wildcard. Raven, welcome back. We've got, at the very least, one more map. It's going to be Clubhouse. If, of course, it goes the way of Knights, then we will have the tiebreaker on Theme Park. But I think we both kind of agree it's very likely we are going to be seeing Wildcard 2-0 here more than, say, a 2-1 in any other fashion.
Definitely feels like that. As much as I would love to be casting some Theme Park tonight and seeing these guys battle it out on Theme Park, I really feel like Clubhouse is looking more like Wildcard than I think I initially realized as well. I was looking back at the history, and these guys played Clubhouse against each other in the regular season. And you know what? That actually went in favor of Wildcard 7-2. So that's quite a big result.
Hey, I mean, to be fair, Kafe was kind of looking at one stage to go in that sort of regard. It was 4-1 to Wildcard, and like any typical series, you'd probably say, oh, you know, let's give it some time to breathe and see if the other team can come back. But because it's Wildcard, at least I was kind of expecting that to just be a bit of a walkover in favor of Wildcard by that point, and no, it wasn't. Knights did in fact come back.
They did, and I mean, they've had some good Clubhouse games themselves, the Knights, but they are against teams of a lower caliber, so they're up against Wildcard here. The best that we have in Six Masters from the regular season. I think it's going to be tough, but they did put in a good show on Kafe, so I'm hopeful for Clubhouse so far.
Yep, there'll be a few at home as well, hopeful, that did vote for Wildcard. It was 77% in favor of Wildcard, 23% to the Pittsburgh Knights, which, I mean, I said at the time, very much could have been probably more in favor of Wildcard, but of course, there's a lot of fans for Pittsburgh Knights are going to skew those results. But I can't, like, my own sort of poll vote, I probably had it as something like 85%, 90% in favor of the Wildcard would probably be fair.
Yeah, and it's nothing against the Knights. Like, of course, they played awesome on Kafe, but coming into the series, they just scraped through in that 4th seed position. Where on the other hand, Wildcard dominantly finished in 1st seed. So it'd be really hard to stoke it against Wildcard at all.
Well, they're going to have to stoke the flames here and spark themselves a return into this series, because they're down 1-0 at the moment, the Pittsburgh Knights. They head to Clubhouse now, the map choice of Wildcard. Good luck, have fun, or have fun, good luck, or just good luck, who knows. But still, I think more than anything, good luck is probably in order for Knights. They're going to need it here on really Wildcard's map pick.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny that you mentioned about the different variations of good luck, have fun, because I remember a player back when I used to play, they had this superstition of never saying good luck to the other team because they didn't want them to be good, right? You can have fun, but you still got to lose. So they just always said, have fun, have fun.
I like that superstition though, but like at the same time, I think you also just want everyone to have a bit of luck. Yeah, no, you know what? I agree. I don't know what else to say in that regard because it's strange, isn't it? It's like wishing the guys that you're about to play against good luck. Like, should be like, wouldn't it be better to say them?
Yeah, maybe. Either way, look, we're seeing respective bans here, or mirrored bans from Kafe. It's not going to change it up at all. But these bans really do carry over to Clubhouse. In fact, the intel denial are really important ones. Mirror can be a strong operator in Clubhouse. So having that off the board is really important. Likewise with the Maestro, those defense bans are quite critical. And Thatcher, always a great ban as we've seen here in ANZ. And particularly Clubhouse, you want him off the board. You want to force things like this Maverick pick that we are now seeing from Strider.
So Church and Arsenal first up. Down to the basement here on Clubhouse. It is going to be Knights attacking first. As they started the attack on Kafe, they'll start the attack here on Clubhouse as well. I don't know how really well that bodes for them. We'll see. I think Wildcard, they were like, well, 4-2 in their defensive half. If you suspect that for Knights, they'd have to have it be around 4-2 again, or would they need something more like 3-3?
I think given that this is Wildcard's pick and the struggles we've seen from the Knights before on Clubhouse, a 3-3 would be a great spot, but a 2-4 would feel fair, if you know what I mean by that. So
it'd be okay.
I think if they can get a couple of these, it's a pass mark, but they're going to have to back themselves again on these defenses.
We'll see how Church and Arsenal is going to play out. Usually you can see teams roaming around that first floor, trying to find kills, be aggressive, or do the opposite, Raven. You can just turtle down to the basement, put a bit of pressure, make sure no one comes through dirt, watch blue, and well, as I said, we can basically just turtle in if you want.
Not very common. That's a neat little electrical spot there that we're seeing from Wildcard. It's going to have to be spotted out by an IQ, which is actually absent from the lineup of the Knights, which I think is quite detrimental, especially pushing towards Church. You really want to know some of those intel spots, clearing out those gadgets. And electric claws can be a little bit tricky to deal with. Of course, the Maverick can bypass that completely, but still, they're a bit of a pain. Knights deciding not to do that, at least in this stage. Some nice swift entry into the building, though, off some good drone placements. And it's like you said, with Church, you really do see two extremes. There's quite the heavy roam, or that real turtle strat. And right now, it really is just the turtle strat from Wildcard. They're all down on site.
Playing it safe. The roam game's usually going to sort of catch attacking team off guard. Turtle is more so if you just want to back yourself in to win those 1v1s, and as the attacking team starts to push down. The only thing I think really, if you're turtling, you've got to be really careful of is, you know, the attacking team pushing in through like kitchen and really trying to take shots through the floor. But this is where the pulse probably helps with that sort of situation.
Absolutely. That pulse gathering that intel is going to be very important for Wildcard in this instance. But Knights are doing a great job with their time management. They have just swiftly pushed through. They identified that this is a turtle. They've already started working these hatches. That's going to start to put a lot of pressure onto Wildcard, given the amount of clock that is going to be left for them to set up and execute. But you know what helps? Killing people with C4s. Pat pulls out a big one to get rid of Hayward on the sledge. It's going to ease some of that vertical pressure for sure.
Pat has just been a machine tonight in getting these opening frags for Wildcard, and then also just being able to follow up as well. Helps when you're on the pulse and you can kind of see where they're at. But yeah, this is sort of what I mentioned, I guess, with Kitchen. This is where the pulse pays dividends, especially the electric core right now still up as well. So they haven't even got the hatch open in Kitchen. 48 seconds remaining, and another C4 kill for Wildcard. This time it's from Ethan.
Pulse info, so important right now, identifying exactly where these players are. Knights finally get their answer back, using a bit of pressure, but given the time, on the clock. This is now working well in favor of Wildcard, and they're telegraphing their push beautifully. They should be ready with these crossfires to counter this attack.
Seconds left.
13 seconds left here in the push, the attack for Knights. Now 3v3, immediately traded back though from Emo. Plan's going to go down from Strider. Dino's going to try and cover him for as much as he can, but Ethan's now found a double kill. So that means Strider had to get off the plant, try and defend himself, and that's unsuccessful. In the end, what is successful is this round win for Wildcard.
Didn't really look too much in doubt at any stage of that round. I mean, the Knights had some great time management, but they never had much pressure otherwise onto Wildcard. They were denied that vertical pressure as soon as the sledge was taken out nice and early. Snowballed down from there. Starting exactly how we saw Kafe starting. Wildcard winning the first defense round. So see whether it trends the same way. But Knights, they didn't look too shabby on that attack, but they just need to establish a little bit more pressure.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think it was that bad. Probably just try and, I guess, clean up the execution a bit from Knights. Obviously, it doesn't help that Pat continues to find these opening frags for Wildcard. And,
Need to locate and defuse
I mean, it goes without saying, obviously, you want to have that man advantage at the very least. Try and have it tied 5-5 for as long as possible. If you do lose a player early on, get that refrag. So far throughout this series, I'd say that Wildcard have been able to find opening kills on a more regular basis, and not only that, but not really getting refragged all that often either.
And that's an important point, because that's something that worked out really well for the Knights a lot on Kafe, was they were able to trade out and refrag quite efficiently, and we saw on the rounds they didn't. They were the ones they eventually just lost out on. So they will have to try and keep up with that style of gameplay, the refragging trade kind of game. They will keep them in it. CCTV Cache presents some new challenges for this attack. A big highlight is this Maverick. If you're an efficient Maverick, opening up this Kennel's wall, that really sets you up for a solid attack. And if this takes too long, or they lose a player to this, it could be round over at that stage.
Holes in the wall just to make it that little bit more difficult, try and buy some time, but what I'm keen to see is how this is going to play out from Knights more than anything. Are they going to just try and heavy focus through Kennel's wall plus garage, or is there going to be at least some form of pressure towards like construction, for instance?
We'll definitely need to consider whether they're going to clear out garage or take it in towards construction. That's really the extended part of the push. You need to do one or the other. That frag grenade kind of going into no man's land, not doing too much. Maybe just ensuring that a C4 doesn't come through. That pulse has been spotted on that drone though. Going very critical. And this pulse played a huge part in the success of the first round defense from Wildcard. This is something that the Knights might need to identify and shut down a bit earlier.
Attackers dropped the diffuser.
Yeah, able to see exactly where the Maverick is, and he's not even able to get this Kennel's wall open as Ethan will get the elimination. That's huge, not just to have the man advantage. As I said, now that Kennel's wall stuck for the time being, they're going to need Dino to go over and open it, if they even can.
Attackers recovered the diffuser.
And in fact, I think they're just going to ignore it. They're going to push through construction. They're opening some holes here.
Yeah.
Try to make it a bit harder to play in cash, but they still don't really have established map control.
Minute 20 seconds left, and Rush on this balcony subroof. Juicy pushing in now into garage for Diesel. For Wildcard, still in control of that. So really, it's like going to be a one-way funnel through construction side potentially. At best, maybe the balcony. C4 goes up, looking for Emerin. Not going to be able to find anyone from that. Hayward's low, and it's exchanged over towards construction. Knights at the very least now have got a bit of a presence over here, and there's still 50 seconds remaining. Trying their best to get back into this round, and they're doing okay.
Has been dropped. Attackers have recovered their
Oh, but they still have to worry about that pulse in the flank. Dino does get a pick, so that does even it out. Coming to the final 40 seconds. Our surrounding site here, looking more like a cash push. Ethan will have something to say about it as Wildcard enter back. And here comes the push. Dino is in sight now with Diffuser, but his teammates are falling apart beside him.
20 seconds remaining. And really the numbers advantage well and truly with Wildcard. Juicy will creep up his red stairs, but that will be the end. Wildcard, quick 2-0, and unlike Kafe, they will be 2 up in the map.
It's looking a bit tough for the Knights. Their attacks are looking half all right, but not quite there enough where it's looking like Wildcard are in a bit of danger. They could have almost secured that if their burst on the site was a little more fruitful in terms of the frags, but they ended up losing players as they got on. So there's no way that plan could go down, and by that stage, Dino was just a fish in a pond of sharks. Wildcard just surrounded him, and there was no chance at that stage. Wildcard looking pretty good with these defenses, and they'll continue their dominance moving towards gym and bedroom.
Which will probably play out in a similar manner. I would imagine Strider should have an easier time on the Kennel's wall, though. No pulse this time around, and generally there's less pressure on the Maverick opening up that Kennel's wall for gym bedroom compared to CCTV and Cash as well.
Sending the roam across towards Cash here, which is the standard that you will see when people defend gym and bedroom on Clubhouse. You really want to deny this map control on the east side for a couple of reasons. One is that it takes up a lot of time, and that is really critical, obviously, if you're going to win a successful defense. But I think more importantly is it denies the next best chance for taking map control around the bomb site. Because if you can't take this Cash construction control, what can you do? Because Master and Gym are the only other two rooms in that floor, and they're the bomb sites. So you have to really, really work hard from the windows and external positions to flush out the defenders playing site, and that can be really tricky. So I would expect the Knights to really try and clear out this Cash nice and early.
Knights aren't careful. This could very well run away from them. This map in particular, Wildcard. They get to 4-0. I don't know how likely a 4-2 half would then look for Knights. That's where it would certainly get very difficult to see that happen. I'm not going to go and say this is going to be 7-0. Certainly not 2-0. It's a long, long way to go. And we saw Knights take a little bit of time on Kafe before they got going. Maybe the same here as well in Clubhouse. We've got a lot of control over in Garage, pushing in now through from Kennel's wall into CCTV and Cash. So not too bad right now. Although this is the critical moment here with Juicy.
He will take advantage of that. It's Geo fragged out in that position. Pre-firing in the wrong direction though. He actually gets flanked by Ethan coming up from blue storage. We're not expecting that at all. Will be a great refrag there for Wildcard. But it means that the Knights have really surrounded this position in Cash. They're finally getting some holes open and some great line of sight. It's Diesel being pinged out here, and he's completely under siege right now.
Minute 27 seconds remaining. This has been better from Knights. But is better going to be enough? Pat's still up. Ethan's still up. Two well-known fraggers here for Wildcard. They've been in high-regarded form tonight so far as well. 3v3 with Wildcard on the defense. Still kind of backed them in here with a minute 10 seconds remaining. Strider with diffuser in hand. In Cash at the moment. Now making his way through construction.
Looks like they're intent on taking logistics control here. I'm not sure if they've droned it or whether that was maybe Hayward outside that's droned it. Potentially just face checking it, using that concussion as the intel, but they're gonna have to push through the smoke, which is really gonna be the advantage there for Pat. And it's really gonna be the end of Knights. Hayward all up to him. 40 seconds to go. He's out on the gym window. He's gonna try and take some shots off, and if he can get it down to 1v2, it might be more possible, but with 3 players from Wildcard all on full HP, it's a real tough ask.
Tough ask, and probably a tough ask for Knights here on Clubhouse in general. They gave their absolute all on Kafe, but how much can they really give here on Clubhouse? They're trying their best, but Wildcard just clearly superior right now. Pat will get the final kill of this round.
It's like the Knights are starting their attacks relatively okay. You know, they're staying toe-to-toe, they're refragging a little bit, they're getting the numbers down on the side of Wildcard. They're even obtaining some map control, but then it really falls apart. And again, I'm not too sure what they did with logistics there, whether a drone went through early that we missed, or whether they were simply relying on face checking it. And given it was the smoke, that was just never going to work. He can smoke that position. There was a crossfire also established from the main door. They needed more happening. And I think a big part of that was they never opened that jacuzzi wall.
Attackers need to
It's a
locate
bit like almost
bomb.
sort of round 2 where they never even got to open up Kendall's wall. There's always something that's going wrong in these attacks for Knights. You're right, they're starting well, but they're not able to execute when it matters the most. And typically sort of just a prior before going in and really trying to frag out, something has just always gone wrong. Whether it's something really big or something really small, that's just how it's been so far for Knights on their attack. Church and Arsenal, though, we go all the way back to that first round, and it's probably one of their better attacking rounds was back then on that first round here on Church Arsenal. So we'll see if they're able to just improve that little bit more to maybe take
5
this
seconds to go.
bomb site. That cheeky electric claw from Ethan again, as we saw earlier on.
Attackers are moving out to locate a bomb and defuse it.
We talked earlier, the pass mark for the Knights right now in this half is really to get 2 rounds. So they've still got a good chance. There's 3 rounds left to play for the half. And they've now seen on each bomb site how Wildcard are trying to defend. And if they can see that Wildcard haven't changed something up, that's their chance. They know what they're facing, they can try and adapt to it. If they can do that, they might be able to get a few of these rounds under their belt. On top of that, on Kafe in the first half, they really clawed back also quite a hefty deficit there. They were down 4-1 at one stage. It's not like they aren't aware that they can't do it.
I mean, you're right, though. That's where you've got to look back at your previous history. In this case, as you said, Kafe, things started off pretty slow for them as well. The difference is on Kafe, they got that second round win, and so it was 1-1 at the very least. Yes, it did get to then 4-1, but then with only one more round and a half, they were able to make it 4-2. Whereas this is still 3 more rounds to be played. They haven't yet to find the opening round win here on Clubhouse. Minute 48. Dirt is fully secured for Wildcard as well. It is going to be another turtle strat. Not too much of a surprise. It worked out really well in the first round. Knights were able to sort of get down through certain avenues, find a pick or two, but for the most part, it's still, even the first round was still a pretty comfortable win for Wildcard.
Yeah, it was. And something that's different this time is I really feel like the Knights have struggled in the first half of this attack. They've obtained
They
some
have
kind of
no idea
control
where that
with it.
electric lure is, do they?
No, and they haven't brought an IQ, and this is what I was saying, is they should be scanning out a lot of this info, especially when you know you're attacking Church. And IQ is so beneficial. On top of the fact of just finding electric claws, Wildcard's been playing so much Pulse, and IQ is a great counter to that.
C4 out from Pat. It worked out really well in the first round. Doesn't quite connect those so far here in the second round. 48 seconds though, and time now is of the essence for Knights. They've taken their sweet time in getting that hatch open in kitchen. Now a bit of pressure with the X-Kairos at Dirt. Only 35 seconds left remaining. Big round here. 4-0 is a massive hole to climb out of, but 3-1 just gives the Knights a bit of relief. And, well, that's one way to make your entry. Ethan, Pat, both just shut down immediately. Emo's able to at least get one back. Now he finds a second one back as Dino pushes straight in onto Arsenal for Knights. Diesel's going to be coming out of Dirt, though. How do you surprise him that easily? 2 versus 2 remaining. Diesel goes for another peek, but at the very least for Knights, he's trapped into Dirt here. Strider is getting that plant down. Dino covering, but very low health. Knows at least where Diesel is, but Emorin is the wild card still left to be dealt with.
Speaking of Immorin, he does step up and gets that kill. Strider all by himself having to defend this. He does get the Jaeger though. That puts him on the triple. In hot pursuit though is Diesel. Gets the pick. He's going to finish it off and we'll get the defuse here, Xenox.
Oh, and again, just messy towards the end though, but like round 1, similar for Knights. Slow start. They were able to kind of get a couple of frags, push on down, get onto the bomb site. But still, like round 1, goes the way of Wildcard, who have been holding up extremely well on their defense. 4 and zip right now. It's not looking good for Knights.
I think some things are just getting a bit messy for them. I'm not sure whether they always intended to execute into Arsenal or not, but usually if you're going to do the plant right under the kitchen hatch there in default, you'll check Dirt. You usually drone out Dirt, and you're usually aware if somebody is there. And like you said, Diesel completely surprised them. And I think that is such a detrimental effect on the round, and really that's where they lost it.
Struggling to see where things are going to turn around for Knights now as we head back to CCTV and Cash. Last time around in the second round, it was Strider who was sort of picked up early, even before he was even able to even open up Kennel's wall. That pretty much forced him to funnel through construction. Garage was never even really contested. I'd like to see Knights really put all of their focus then, I guess, onto Garage and Kennels. Make sure they get that Kennels wall open, try and gain control of Garage, clear the player up in Rafters. And then if you can, be a bit greedy, maybe try and send 1 or 2 through construction and really then sort of cover all avenues. But Wildcard will make it extremely difficult.
They will, because they have such a solid roam in vertical positions here that there's not too much that Knights will be able to do unless they get that Kennels wall open, because that will start to put some pressure on site and that will displace a couple of the positions. But Wildcard have been countering it so well. At least this time for the Knights, there's no pulse on the board. So that exact position of the Maverick isn't quite being telegraphed. Imorin is on the Valkyrie though, so I have to wonder whether maybe he got a sneaky cam in a position that will help them counter this Maverick trick.
The Goyo as well from Pat. Not sure how often you actually see the Goyo on CCTV and Cash. Actually didn't quite see where he put the Vulcan shields. Maybe one top red, one on the side.
I think I saw one go lounge for sure, so maybe all for the roam. There's one on
One on
site.
site. Are they both on site? No.
Pretty sure the other was lounge. I'm quite sure.
I know, I trust you. I trust you. 2 minutes.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good.
Something a bit different here for Knights to deal with, but also, as you said, no pulse this time, and has made life a lot easier for Strider.
Yep, but boy, those C4s have been so deadly for Wildcard. The Ash off the board, so maybe not as much utility lost there, but he hasn't made an impact at all with entry or any picks. A lot of pressure coming in from construction. Hey, we're just aware of some of these angles from below. It's definitely something that worked out well last time for Wildcard. Some of that flanking positions. Imorin's under a lot of pressure here on site by arrows and the Habana pellets opening up that angle. It's looking at better for the Knights, but they still are at that man disadvantage.
The only thing they don't really have control of right now, Knights, is Garage. Still got to holding up around Rafters. C4's thrown out, unable to detonate it because Hayward is able to get the frag onto Imorin. This is better from Knights, as you said, and it's the fact that they've got construction, Kennels all open up. So from both sides, they're able to put the pressure right onto Wildcard.
Oof, Ethan trying to get a little cheeky there at that peek out, but it's being watched. He's faking the runaway. In fact, he's going to try and go for it again. I wonder if it's still being watched, whether there's a drone on it. He's not going to attempt it again. I really thought he was. And in fact, I think he would have caught that player off guard. They're just sitting there repelled on their drone. Either way, 25 seconds to go. The Knights are going to have to get something happening right now.
20 seconds remaining. 4 up still for Knights. I was about to say 4 up, and they get Geo. Diesel follows immediately after that as well. Nice little hold spotted though through Ethan. Gets a second one. Can he get a third one? Oh my god! Ethan and Diesel combine. In about 2 seconds, they get 4 kills.
Oh man, Ethan has just been unstoppable so far in Clubhouse, and that was really the stamp on it. That's 5 rounds in a row for Wildcard. Ethan just getting away with murder, and 3-piece nugget coming out. 1 round left for the half. It's all looking red here. Wildcard are just steamrolling ahead. Ooh. Clean.
That's disgusting. No, that's not clean. That's dirty. That's not nice, and that's got to be demoralizing as well for Knights, because that was a round. That was their best round on Clubhouse so far, and they still lost.
Yep. Yep. That's not going to feel good at all. And they've been close a couple of these attacks. As you said, that was definitely the closest they've come, but here they are, still 5-0 down. We said 2 rounds would be probably the pass mark
Look
for
at
them.
Ethan.
They've lost that now.
10
Oh
kills.
boy, yep. Yep. Showing up for his team, as Pat did in the first map. I mean, Ethan also had a pretty good first map as well. Right now, you've really got to feel like Ethan might be more of an MVP for his team, but the general teamwork from Wildcard has just been fantastic, and the way they've adapted to what Knights have been throwing at them has been exactly what you would expect from Wildcard.
Oh, it's definitely been the Ethan and Pat show from Wildcard tonight. I actually don't even know if I'd be able to split them for MVP, like if we're including Kafe as well. Not that there is actually an MVP award, but, you know, just hypothetically, they've both been probably equal to each other, which is amazing news for Wildcard. Unfortunately for Knights, it's just been a bit of a disaster here on Clubhouse, and the fortunate news for them is that disaster is probably about to be over pretty soon. The question is, will it be 7-0, Raven?
Yep, and that's a great question. And we talked about the pressure of the 0 in Kafe. It was good that the Knights cleared that off nice and early. Maybe that has been a slight detriment to them here, adding a little bit of extra pressure. Wait and see whether that does eventuate. And this is just really all exclaiming that they had their chance in map 1. If they had taken Kafe, things might be playing out even different here. They could be riding the high of that, and they could be playing cleaner Siege.
Yeah, you got the ifs, ends, coulds, buts, whens, hows, etc. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing right now is just a masterclass performance from Wildcard on Clubhouse. They've been the better team. Opening frag goes to Juicy. It's not as if Knights actually haven't had a couple of opening frags here on Clubhouse either. They're just failing to convert. It's been a rough going for Geo as well. He's been fragged pretty early with the opening deaths, and he hasn't actually found a kill just yet.
And again, this is starting well for Knights, and I feel like we've said it a lot. This is looking good at this position, or the clock's fine, and their map control's all right. They need to close it out. This is their last chance for the half. Aaron's got tagged up in a nice little spot there. A lot of the Knights still with a lot of HP as well. They are sitting poised to potentially take their first round here.
Yes, but it's the players that are alive that matter. Pat and Ethan are still up. Imarin's a really good sort of foil as well to the Pat and Ethan show too. Geo's very much struggled here on Clubhouse. Deals has been okay, but the fact that they haven't cleared out Pat and Ethan yet kind of just gives me the heebie-jeebies to see Knights kind of maybe just falter here at the end at this final hurdle. It's a pretty big hurdle though. Ethan sprays as he's concussed at the moment from Sophia and Josh. Into logistics still, Pat just holding, watching this hatch. Knights have got all the map control, they've got all the numbers, they've got everything going their way, and now they finally get Ethan. The big bad wolf is taken out. Pat's still up though, roaming around. Would need a big performance from here. Opens it up with a frag onto Dino, somehow doesn't take any damage, gets up, double kill, gets his third kill. Pat's insane, can't be stopped. He's like the Terminator running around, just killing everyone. 23 seconds, and it's a 2 versus 2, Raven.
You can never really count them out, like you said. Depends who's still alive. Pat is finally dead, though, which means it is up to Emo Rin. He's quite capable of a clutch of his own. He does get a nice flick onto Hayward. That's diffused down. Xenox. That means Juicy is the one that has to stick this plant. And as the timer potentially closes to 0, it looks like Emo Rin isn't quite sure where it is. C4 misses the mark, and now it's all up to this retake.
Juicy should know exactly where Emo's coming from as well. Change up the position, fakes one way, comes back the other, has got 30 seconds. So time is on the side of Emo, health is also on the side of Emo, and well, everything is on the side of Emo because it's 5-0 right now. Not too much pressure on this one. Watches it. Sitting in this bathroom is Juicy on very, very low health, and Emo's just being methodical. He knows exactly where he is, surely. Checks one side, checks the other side, and that's going to be 6-0. Knights still cannot get a round win on Clubhouse.
Nope. And we said last round it was the closest they got. This round they actually got the diffuser down, but no, not to be. And Emarin, Clutch Master, comes out with it. It kind of just felt like watching him retake that. It was just this inevitable thing. I don't know how you felt, but I just felt like he was definitely
I felt like it had
kill.
happened before it happened, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Been fragged pretty early with the opening deaths, and he hasn't actually found a kill just yet. Oh, that's me. Look, again, though, I mean, I think it speaks for itself. Pat has been insane tonight. You were speaking about Ethan and what Ethan's been capable of, and, you know, the 10 kills and everything. I'm sitting there making the case for Pat, and then he just says, all right, Xenox, all right, you know, I'll give you a 3K. There's a pat on the back there. 6-0, match point and series point now as we head back down to Church and Arsenal. It's been a bit of a theme unfortunately for Knights, where they've come close quite a few times. Like, this could have easily, at this point, it's hard to say it, but it could have easily been something like 3-3 or 4-2.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I really do. If the conversion rate for Knights was just a bit better, I think this whole map could have been playing out differently, but it's not. It's Wildcard have been able to close out these rounds, some of them from absolute nowhere, and with Geo having quite the little impact, as you said, he was a lot of those opening deaths in that half, and he hasn't been able to find the scoreboard. So, in the way Knights, they've got to have a perfect halves themselves here, Xenox, if they want to save this series. They need 6 in a row.
Yeah, if you had have said to me coming into this that Knights would require to win at least 6 rounds in a row in Clubhouse, I would have said, hey, maybe we're going to theme park. But no, it's not going to happen here. Wildcard, at some point, whether it's now and it's a 7-0, which is, look, it's a bit humiliating, but at the end of the day, for Knights, I think their realistic expectations would have always been that lower bracket. They would have given themselves every chance to beat Wildcard, but the realism is also saying, hey, look, these guys are on another level right now. We got a bit of catching up to do over the next few months.
Yeah, I feel like they would have backed themselves to an extent, saying, you know what, guys, if we can get this first map, maybe we can really be in it for this 2-1 win in this series. Yep. But you know what? We'll take lower bracket if not. And maybe that's how it's gone through. And I think given the way they've played against Wildcard, more so in Kafe, it's hard to say about Clubhouse though, because like we've said, their attacks are real 50-50. Half of it was good, half of it wasn't great. And I think they could really put up a good fight against Sinister. So if that does eventuate, that lower bracket match could be quite spicy.
I feel bad because the way we're talking is it's like it's already happened, but like to be fair, it basically has already happened, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. And who knows, maybe they do have a comeback in them, but given the way things have played out, it just doesn't feel like that.
They are on the defense. Who knows? That's not really the start you want, though. And at this point, maybe even Knights are just saying, get it over and done with. Let's just get out of here. Let's watch the VODs. Let's reset. Let's come back tomorrow where they will be taking on Sinister. Maybe they wouldn't have been expecting to take on Sinister. Of course, that happened earlier on in the night. Mikami 2-0 against Sinister. Knights are going to have a tough ask again tomorrow. And if they are to win that series and progress forward, Raven, that would be a shock to think that Sinister basically just got dumped out of the competition in the playoffs 2-0.
Yeah, that prospect would definitely be disappointing for them, given this is the best season of anything they've ever had, and finished in 2nd place. To be the first team out of 6 Masters would for sure be devastating. Well, we'll see whether it gets there. 40 seconds to go. This attack has stalled out a bit from Wildcard, but they have great map control, they've got some good vertical pressure, and they have the man advantage.
30 seconds remaining. Dino's low, and as you said, with the man advantage, it's not looking good for Knights, but they are on the defense, so still Wildcard have to make their way in. Big opportunity for Knights to find a few frags as Wildcard push through these doorways and these corridors, and that's exactly what happens. Nice little wall opening up from Ethan, really quick, really methodical, with a bit of help as well from Diesel, Hemo, and while Wildcard are going to get the plant down, and they're going to get this win 4-1. That will do the round, unless Hayward can come up with something big. He's got a triple kill. He will have to get an ace plus the defuse to win the round here for Knights and at least avoid the 7-0. It's all on his shoulders. 30 seconds left.
Defenders have eyes on the
He's trying to fake them out. He's not 100% sure of the positions though. Tries the pre-fire, not to be. Wildcard in very dominant fashion take that 7-0 and of course the series 2-0, progressing forward.
Well, this is why you don't say good luck to your opponents. It should be bad luck. Flawless victory, 7-0 in the 6 Masters playoffs. I didn't think we would see that, even with how good Wildcard have been. When you look at as well, that first map on Kafe, which went 8-7 overtime. Knights had 2 overtime match points. Had they won one of those, we'd be going to theme park right now. Instead, that's it. The series is done. Wildcard move on to the upper bracket. They'll be taking on Akami tomorrow. Knights go down to the lower bracket, where, of course, they will be playing Sinister.
Both those matchups should be really exciting. But talking about this series tonight, what polarizing maps. An 8-7 on map 1, where it really looked like the Knights had a great shot. and then a 7-0 on map 2 where they couldn't get around to save them.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly two very different maps. In saying that, Kafe was the map choice as well for Knights, so not too surprising. I think it was just more the way that map had started. 4-1 in Wildcard's favor. We were getting a glimpse of their dominance, what they're capable of. We thought maybe, yeah, it could go 7-1, 7-2. That wouldn't be surprising. And then, of course, we got ourselves a really good battle between Knights, Wildcard on Kafe. Unfortunately, though, for Knights, we did end up seeing Wildcard dominate on Clubhouse, and that extent was 7-0.
Yeah, it was dominant, and it's just so unfortunate for the Knights because, like we've said it quite a lot, it feels like now, their attacks weren't terrible. The first half, most of their attacks actually were going fine. They could just never capitalize, and especially towards the end of that half, it just felt like Wildcard were just pulling clutches out of strange positions. Both instances, I think, the Knights had like 5-2 man advantage leading into those final 20 seconds, yet Wildcard pulled it back.
They definitely showed sort of that they are the best team in Oceania right now, and that they've got what it takes, that when they do get challenged like that, they're not just going to fall over and falter, right? They're going to be up for the task. I mentioned it on Kafe. It was 2 match points technically to Knights, and Wildcard were able to withstand that on the attack as well, mind you, right? It's not like they were on defense. They were attacking and trying to fight off those match points that Knights had. So that was really well played from them, and sort of solidifies how strong they are as a team. And then Clubhouse, as you kind of mentioned, polar opposite. Like, it was just the Ethan and Pat show, like on steroids compared to Kafe, where those two were definitely the star players on Kafe, even more so than on Clubhouse.
Yeah, and then just sprinkling a bit of Imarin in there as well. He put out a couple of really big plays on both maps, but obviously the notable one there on Clubhouse was that final round of that first half, getting the clutch against Knights when it would have felt like they were finally getting one on the board, but no, Imarin, not to be, gets that clutch.
But our first interview from this series in particular, Silex from Wildcard, who will be very happy, as Dev likes to say. Happy smile on that dial. Congratulations, mate. In the end, you got tested on Kafe 8-7, but then polar opposite on Clubhouse. Maybe just sort of talk us through there, the polar opposites between the two maps.
Not really much to say. They played really well on Kafe. We did some prep on them. A couple of things that we tried to do didn't work out so well. They caught us off guard a few times. A lot of trades as well. So yeah, they fought for that one. Bit of a nail biter. Bit too close for comfort for me. And Clubhouse, we got to start defense. We were really confident in that map. Kind of knew how they would play it. And yeah, ended up with the W on that one.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question about looking forward. So you guys will be up against Okami. How has that scenario played out for you guys? Did you really think that maybe Okami would be the opponents you'd get in the next phase of the bracket? Or has that become a bit of a surprise for you?
Well, I thought the Sinister Okami match was going to be a bit closer. I thought it'd go to 3 maps. I honestly thought Sinister would take it. Playing Okami, I mean, there's no major change between playing Okami or Sinister. We got to prep for both. So yeah, just different team that we expected to play. Doesn't change too much in the grand scheme of things. Still got to win it.
Going forward as well, again, which match do you look at more in terms of like wanting to fix the things that went wrong on Kafe, or looking to, I guess, look at the positives from Clubhouse, that level of domination? Do you look at both, or do you just maybe focus on wanting to fix things up a bit at like the issues that happened on Kafe?
Oh, you definitely got to look at your own mistakes a lot more than like what went well. Of course, you have to look at what went well because you got to reinforce those positives. But we're definitely going to look at what went wrong on Kafe and see what we can fix, so we don't make those same mistakes in the future.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, mate. Best of luck tomorrow in your matchup against Okami in the upper bracket.
No worries. See you guys.
Yep. So really, in the end, you obviously do have to look at the things that go well, but I think the focus should be on, okay, where did we go wrong a bit on Kafe? How did we allow Knights to, at one point, have to, match points?
Yeah, I think Kafe was probably much too close for comfort for them, considering they are up against some really strong opponents tomorrow in Okami. So for sure, they need to analyze that and figure out what was going wrong. Maybe part of it was that they had just some big struggles with those attacks, just in general, attacking in general on Kafe, which is actually a map that Okami could potentially thinking them to. And given that Wildcard only banned Border, you have to think about that kind of thing, right? They don't want to play Border, that's for sure. So they have to think about what the strong maps that are left that Okami might choose tomorrow.
Yeah, and obviously that's the... Akami's kind of probably not expecting to have been playing Wildcard this early on, but I think it's a really, really good test for them. I think they're actually lucky that even if they lose this, they then drop back down, they play Sinister, they can gain so much from this matchup against Wildcard. Whereas if they had lost the series, the odds are they probably maybe were going to play Sinister in the lower bracket anyway, but they wouldn't have had the opportunity to get a crack at Wildcard early on and see where they can then fix things up. So they get that sort of bonus. They get a free shot at Wildcard early on. See what happens. I definitely going to back Wildcard in to win that series. And then for Knights, well, they probably would have been expecting potentially to play against Akami, right? Now they're going to go play against Sinister. That's going to be a really tough ask.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to obviously both the series tomorrow. But for sure, the Knights going up against Sinister, that's a really tough lower bracket match to have. I think Sinister are going to be quite disappointed given how they played tonight. I think that will really fuel them to come back really strong tomorrow.
But our next interview and our final interview for the night, it's the ever lovely Strider from the Pittsburgh Knights. Mate, firstly, I just want to say everything from here is a bonus, really, because the last time we had a chat, I told you that you weren't even going to be able to make the playoffs, and yet here you are. So, obviously disappointing to lose Clubhouse in that fashion, but as a team, you've got to be happy pushing Wildcard to 8-7 on Kafe.
Yeah, definitely. As you guys said before, like it was really our attacks that were quite hurting us. But at the end of the day, like it is a defender-sided map, so we knew we could bring it back. It's just such a shame that when we got the last defense on 7-7, we just couldn't bring it home. We were very looking forward to playing Theme Park tonight.
Actually, that's definitely what I want to ask you about in terms of the actual veto process. Were you really thinking that once you got map 1, that Theme Park was where you wanted to be for map 3? Maybe talk us through some of that thought process.
Yeah, so the maps tonight that we played were like, we completely predicted them. We had a feeling that Wildcard would take us to one of the 2 maps that we played last time, but maybe not Villa because we ended up scraping a few rounds in. But as you saw, like Clubhouse is just much weaker for us against them. But Theme Park, I mean, it's pretty much unknown for both of us, at least in the public eye, about how we each play. So it would have been really exciting to see how they play and just a bit of fresh gameplay, you know.
You drop down to the lower bracket going into tomorrow night. You're going to be facing Sinister. Would have you guys been expecting to play them in the lower bracket? Basically, sort of your thoughts there on them losing to Akami. And then on top of that, the next question would be also, have you got any sort of final secret strats that maybe haven't quite come out yet that you can show tomorrow against Sinister?
I mean, if I did have some secret strats, I certainly wouldn't be telling you them. Put it that way. But in terms of like Sinister or Okami, like at the end of the day, we actually, I mean, personally, I would have thought that we'd end up playing Sinister just based on just the seedings in general. But it doesn't really matter. As you saw, like they're both really capable teams, and Wildcard is especially capable. So if we can bring it to Wildcard, we feel as though that our gameplay is really going to step it up against Okami and Sinister. It doesn't matter really which one.
Yeah, certainly so. That match on Kafe was one for the Classics. Best of luck tomorrow night, mate. I know you guys are going to bring it your best.
Thanks, guys.
So we've got our lower bracket and our upper bracket set. Raven, Akami versus Wildcard tomorrow. And then in the elimination bracket, it is going to be, of course, Sinister versus Pittsburgh Knights. Both semifinals now completed, and the gauntlet process begins for either Sinister or Pittsburgh.
And that is such a big variable that you bring up, is that lower final is elimination. Now, obviously, final in the word there. So the loser is going to be out. And that's a big deal. That's a lot of pressure. And something you talked about in the middle of the cast is Sinister being the second-seeded team coming into this. They really don't want to be the first one out. So for them to bail out in the lower bracket to the Knights, that would be an absolute fail for them. I think they're going to be gunning pretty hard in that match tomorrow.
Yeah, it would be a little bit disappointing for them to finish the regular season, a good regular season at that, then in the playoffs, getting kind of dumped out 2-0, and then, regardless of the result, I don't even think the result would matter. I don't even think it would matter if it's 2-1 or a 2-0. If they get eliminated, that's going to be disastrous. As much as I love the Pittsburgh Knights and everything, the storylines around them and the last, grasp heroics to somehow get into the playoffs, they're certainly going to be up against it here, because Sinister really should be throwing everything they've got here so that they're not going to go out in straight sets, which would then, of course, mean Pittsburgh. One of these two teams has gone out in straight sets. The more likely candidate to that is probably Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you would definitely think so. But as you said, and we've seen tonight, they had some really big glimmer of hope. Kafe was fantastically played from them against such a strong team like Wildcard. And they were half in it in Clubhouse, but they just never closed out those rounds. So I think that is going to be a real tight series to watch out for tomorrow. And of course, Okami, Wildcard, battle of the top four there, of course. Okami and Wildcard have had a rich history. So I'm expecting that to also be a pretty close series.
I'm expecting it to be a cracking night of 6 Masters tomorrow night, so make sure you come back, tune in. I'm not going to be there. Guz will be taking my spot, but of course, Dev Marta will be there along with the lovely Raven. So make sure you tune in tomorrow night for the more 6 Masters playoffs action.
Take your hand and we'll rise up from the dust. Oh, here we go, let us see.
5 seconds to
You won't be alone, we're unstoppable. Don't be afraid to show what we're going for. This is what we know. Here we come back to life, we're still breathing. Standing up, everybody's gonna see it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. Even if we fall, we will rise up and we follow the path that we believe in. No, we're not gonna stop until we reach it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne. We all have our reasons why we
15
are
seconds
on
remaining.
this track. Oh, we all have